and was only suitable for people aged 18 or over, will almost certainly have an adult theme, and might well contain sex or violence, which are quite graphic. It may also contain explicit language, including sexual swear words. Thanks for listening.
Hello there, all you Godless Revolutionaries. Tonight we are very, very happy to welcome Dr. Darrel Ray as our special guest for tonight's episode. If you don't know, Dr. Darrel Ray is the founder and chairman of the board of directors for Recovering from Religion. Dr. Darrel Ray has been a psychologist for over 30 years and is the author of 4 books, 2 on organizational teamwork, as well as The God Virus, How Religion Infects Our Lives and Culture, and Sex and God, How Religion Distorts Sexuality. He's been a student of religion most of his life and holds a master's degree in religion as well as a bachelor's degree in sociology and anthropology with a doctorate in psychology. He is also the director of the Recovering from Religion program called the Secular Therapy Project, a groundbreaking effort to anonymously match interested clients with therapists who adhere to evidence-based secular therapeutic practices in their mental health treatment approach.
We also have a few news items we cover. We'll talk about... Wait. They're not pro-gay in Moorhead, KY?
Oh.
France pays you for their Wi-Fi. Honduras resurrection. Republicans are still smoking Trump's polls. And the Shoreham air crash victims' families continue search.
We also talk about Glenn Beck quite a bit because...
Yes, we actually talk about Glenn Beck quite a bit.
Glenn fuckery Beck.
Super fuck that guy.
Welcome to the show, all you revolutionaries.
Wow.
But here's what his revelation comes to him. He's kind of got all this stuff like touching, wiping, lowering of the animals.
Not wiping, whipping.
Whipping.
Yeah.
Torture.
Also not touching.
I am dyslexic. I hope I'm not having like a stroke.
Do it live! Fuck it! Do it live!
And an atheist almost always becomes supporters of eugenics and abortion.
A swine is hungry for nuts. Jesus hates them too.
Satan is real.
Being a Satanist is an open declaration of revolt against counterproductive received wisdom and mindless rogue tradition.
Decapitate her head off!
We're done. You're done. You're done.
Obama!
Thank you very much, Dr. Darrel Ray, for joining us on tonight's episode of the Godless Rebelution. How are you?
I'm doing well, and thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure.
Josh Duggar's not doing so well, but I'm doing pretty good. Well, I heard he escaped from his clinic. He hasn't shown up.
Oh.
Nobody knows where he's at. Although his family airplane seems to be going all around mysteriously.
Oh.
What's your take on that whole situation as far as from your particular expertise, what with the symptoms he's shown or the actions he's taken?
Well, he's infected with the God virus. That's the problem.
Right.
You wanna? We don't need to go any farther.
I suppose not. Yeah.
The poor Doug is infected with a lot of shame and guilt that his family put on him. And I do say, when I say poor Doug, I have some level of empathy because he is certainly a victim of that crazy family he lives in.
Oh, you mean
he was raised in it.
Yeah. Josh Duggar?
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh Duggar. He's perpetuating it. And he believes that shit. Can I use 4-letter words on this?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. He believes it with all his heart. Well, when you believe it and then you violate it, it's just going to bring you back to Jesus. I mean, that's what's going to happen. He's going to stay in rehab. Of course, the place he's doing rehab in is really not a rehab place. It's just a Jesus prayer center that has no qualified staff on it. Mm-hmm. He'll stay there 6, 8, maybe 6 months, but he'll be back, and Jesus will have forgiven him, and we'll see a lot more Josh Duggar. Just like Ted Haggard was back. It only took about a year and a half for Ted Haggard to come back from playing with gay prostitutes. So I don't know. Is Ashley Madison or screwing a erotic dancer? Is that, I don't know, a year, 6 months? Can't be as bad as what.
Well, does any of his behavior with the siblings as a teenager and so forth, does any of that connect to some of the things you've written about concerning the pedophile priest situation, and they're kind of locked into this adolescent sexual mentality?
Wow, you're good. I appreciate that. Yeah, you've read the book, haven't you? Thank you. Yes and no. In fact, I'm going to be talking about that in 2 or 3 weeks at Oasis. I'm going to be giving a talk. Yes and no. I mean, Josh Duggar, when he did that, was a teenager himself, and he was molesting, sexually molesting his sisters.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to look at it in context. He was 12, 14 years old. What he did was clearly illegal, clearly wrong. But the fact is, he's raised in a family that did not teach boundaries, did not teach sex education, doesn't teach people that touching other people inappropriate is wrong. They just ignore it. There is no sex education of any kind going on. So, I mean, it's a fine line when you look at this stuff. But children will play with other children. We know that for a fact. When I was a kid, I was sexually playing with other kids. People play. I got a long email the other day from a listener of my podcast that talked about getting caught playing doctor, and she was playing the doctor, and so she got caught playing doctor, and her fundamentalist parents went apeshit over it. So, and she was. Yeah, is that right or wrong? I don't know. Children do that kind of thing.
Sure.
Now, he was an adolescent by that time, but when he was being raised, he was not taught about boundaries. He wasn't taught about sexual behavior. He was taught from the day he was born that masturbation is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what is a person to do with that incredibly powerful sex drive if you're told it's your biggest enemy? Right. So you've got a person who's being programmed to go crazy at some point in time. He just happened to go crazy with his sisters. It's illegal as hell. It's inappropriate as hell. I blame his parents. I blame his family and that religious stuff because they didn't teach him that touching people inappropriate was wrong. Nobody taught him about boundaries. Nobody taught him that sex is fine if among consenting adults, and you can masturbate all you want until you get a consenting sex partner somewhere. I mean, all those things are, he's just acting out his sex drive inappropriately because he was never taught anything different.
So this is
I know that sounds, some people will say I'm giving him excuses. I'm not. I'm just saying you're raised in that kind of environment. You can't expect anything different.
Sure.
I guarantee you there's more than him going on somewhere in that.
Yes, absolutely. This is more, against abstinence only teaching, and that coupled with the God virus than it is abnormal teen behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people have emailed me or texted me or whatever telling me over the years, basically I did what Josh Duggar did. And it could be, it's as many females as males. It doesn't go. One woman I know said, I had sex when I was 12 years old and I seduced a 14-year-old boy to do it. I wanted it.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, technically that's illegal, but if you just look at, and I like to take a bigger picture because we are so consumed with our Christian religious culture here. We can't see outside the box. But if you look outside of Western culture, you go to cultures like the Manganians or the Hawaiians before Western contact, or, other cultures like the Moso in China, children are sexually playing all the time. It's just a part of growing up. And in most of those cultures that I named and others I could name, the female is in charge of the sexual relationship, not the male. They're not patriarchal cultures. The female has a big part in how sex goes down in those cultures. I mean, in the Manganian culture, I wrote about that in my book, Sex and God. There's kind of an unwritten expectation that kids can start playing sexually anytime they want. Boys are actually taught that they have to give a woman or a girl at least 3 orgasms for every orgasm they have. Now, that's certainly not anything you'll hear a Christian talking about.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Well, I mean,
if you look at the Duggar culture, they don't even believe women want sex. They don't even talk about female orgasms.
Yeah.
Because
and recently,
makes no sense.
Yeah, recently there was a church leader who was talking about female climaxes are basically evil, right? Like I can't remember the guy's name. We'll have to find the clip after we finish up the interview to play it. But, he was at the pulpit ranting and raving that female climaxes are a myth and, that they're of the devil and men shouldn't have to worry about them.
Now, there's a guy who's never given a woman an orgasm before. And never masturbates or looks at porn either.
Yeah, sure. Of course not.
Yeah, probably.
Why is it so important for religions to subvert sexuality? I mean, especially you find that, especially like we were saying with women and homosexuals.
Yeah, right. Well, I wrote a whole book on
Yes,
that.
you did.
If you think about it, your biology is the most basic thing you got going for you. There's nothing else. I mean, that's all there is. So if you can make somebody feel ashamed or bad about their own body, then you've got them for life. So what religions do is they basically say your body is your worst enemy and you have to control it. Well, it's actually an impossible thing to ask somebody.
Right.
There's almost nobody on this planet, including Catholic priests, that can control it.
Especially Catholic priests.
Especially Catholic priests. Unless you're asexual. And that is certainly a legitimate sexual orientation. And when I say asexual, I mean somebody who literally has no sex drive. There are people who at any given time aren't interested in sex, but they're not necessarily asexual. Mm-hmm. They could just not be interested right now for whatever reason. Their hormones are different, or they're taking a medication, or some phase in life they're in depression. There could be a lot of reasons why a person is acting like they don't want sex or doesn't want it at all. But the only exception to this rule that we don't really talk about is an asexual person. But besides that, every other person, the other 97 or 98% of the people on this planet have a difficult time, can't control it, just literally can't. So asking somebody to control something that is physically almost impossible, stop breathing.
Right.
It's not quite that dramatic, but it's obviously very difficult. So, man, once religions teach you this, then they get something I call the guilt cycle involved. And when you do break down and masturbate, then you feel guilty about it. You have to come back to Jesus. And you always come back to the place you learned the guilt in the first place. Right. No Catholic goes and confesses to a Baptist minister. Mm-hmm. It right. just always is the place you learned it. And it's the most beautiful con game I've ever come across in my entire life. It's psychologically perfect.
Yeah.
Make people afraid of their own bodies. And then they have to come back to the religion to get forgiveness and to feel good about themselves. That's the long answer to your short question.
Yeah. And they have to get forgiveness from a bunch of other people who are pretending to be pure in those ways as well.
Right.
Which, which is also part of the con and I think a despicable part of it as well.
And we're seeing that with this whole Ashley Madison thing.
Yes.
I'm loving this.
Yes.
When I was growing up, we had 8 different ministers in a 10-year time period get caught having affairs. Oh. When I was a teenager in those years of my life. So I knew it was going on a whole lot of places. And when this Ashley Madison thing comes out, and you see all these ministers, 400 ministers and elders or whatever they estimate are going to be resigning last week because of it. I say to myself, yeah, but that's 1/1000th of the number of people, or 1/10,000th of the number of people that are actually doing it. There's a lot of people out there.
Right.
Yeah, they're just the ones that sign up for a website.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. They're not the ones that are dinging hitting on the Sunday school teacher. Yeah. the one next door to them. I mean, we had half a dozen elders in our church have affairs, or in one way or the other have inappropriate behavior. And here's the deal. None of that is illegal. You mainly only hear about the illegal stuff. The minister who rapes, a girl in his congregation. You hear about that. You don't hear about the 30 ministers who had affairs with someone consenting within his or her congregation. We don't have a clue how much is going on there. Well, we have a clue. We just don't have a specific statistic, but we know it's a hell of a lot more than we've seen so far.
Oh yeah, and we know for a fact that it's a whole lot more than we will ever hear about, right? I mean, statistically speaking, it happens a whole lot more often that people are having these, somewhat illicit affairs or under the radar affairs because they don't want to be shamed and they don't want to be thrust out of the religion that they've been a member of for however long and judged for those actions because they have this feeling that what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah, I try to illustrate that when I give my talks. I don't know if you've ever seen YouTube or seen me give a talk. I almost always start my talks with, how many of you masturbate? I do.
Yeah.
I do that. Well, if it's a group of secularists, I'll get 80% of the people raising their hand. Now, I don't know what the other 20% of people are doing, but 80% are saying yes.
The other 20% are lying.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other 20% are lying. Or there's people that just don't masturbate. I've come across people I genuinely know they just have never been interested in it, or at this time in their life they're not masturbating. They're older and they don't have a sex drive. There's reasons why people might not masturbate. But I did an experiment. I've done this a couple of times now. I don't get the opportunity very often, but I was in front of a group. David Fitzgerald, David, author.
Love David.
Love the guy. He's great.
Yeah.
Well, he and I went through San Francisco and I spent the day with him, and he got me. I don't know why they wanted me, but he let me come, or some group asked me to come and speak to him. Well, it turned out to be a Christian evangelical group. There's like 20 kids in there and their sponsors, 4 or 5 adult sponsors in the back of the room, and they want me to come talk. So I assume they know who I am. Well, I guess that was a wrong assumption. Because I start my talk off with them just the same way. I say, how many of you masturbate? I do. Not one hand went up. And I say, now that's interesting, because if you were a bunch of atheists, almost everybody would. And I start talking about what the prohibitions on masturbation are, in Christianity, and especially evangelical Christianity. I probably talk about 10 minutes. I'm pushing the limits. I'm really doing this on purpose. And pretty soon, I could see the people in the back, the adults, they're looking at each other and they're getting more and more and more concerned. And finally, one guy raised his hand and said, can we talk about something besides masturbation? Well, you don't masturbate, so I thought you might want to know about it.
Right.
Oh.
Sounds like Mormons.
Yeah, anyway. I'm not evil too often, but that was just too good an opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Now, darn good and well, all these people in that room, except the adults, were probably 17, 18 to 20 years of age. And not one of them raised their hand.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shame there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know one of your favorite topics is discussing Mormons and sexuality. We're here in Utah. Matt and I are both former Mormons. Ryan is lucky enough to never have been a Mormon.
Yes.
Or anything.
Or anything, yeah, Ryan.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Ryan. You escaped the God virus.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan was raised in a secular household. I was baptized LDS, but basically stopped attending church shortly after being baptized. Matt was a true believing Mormon until...
I was a big idiot and went all the way to the temple.
But did you do a mission trip?
No, I did not. I had a son at that time, so I wasn't allowed.
Oh, interesting.
Premarital sex.
Oh my gosh, you really were a sinner.
Yep, I was.
Congratulations. The sin seems to have helped you get out of the church.
Yes,
though.
it actually did help. Yeah, and now I can have discussions with my 14-year-old boy about how masturbation is totally normal and he doesn't need to feel bad about it at all.
Oh, right. Well, tell him to listen to my podcast.
I'll refer him.
Well,
and I can talk over to my podcast.
Yeah.
Well, and so it kind of tied in with what I was thinking a little bit. You had mentioned that, some people don't masturbate, right? But that's a really big thing within the LDS church, is that you're not supposed to masturbate, that it's really bad. And, a lot of that was propagated by, former church elder who is recently deceased, Boyd K. Packer.
Yeah, Boyd K. Packer. I actually reproduced a part of that pamphlet that he wrote in my book, The God Virus. Not God, Sex and God, right?
Yeah, the For Young Men Only pamphlet.
Yes, don't tamper with the factory.
Yeah, don't tamper with it. You will hardly be aware that it's working at all.
Right.
Yeah,
that is one of the fucking craziest things I've ever read. That really is. It is really crazy.
Well, and
that guy, that guy was jacking off somewhere.
Boyd K. Jacker.
There you go.
Well, and he recently passed away, and there were a lot of people who were like, I don't miss him at all, and frankly, I'm fucking glad that he's dead, and I've kind of fallen into that camp just because he damaged so many people through the God virus and these ridiculous shaming beliefs that he had, and told everybody else that they needed to have also.
Yeah, right. Well, and he's that pamphlet is literally given to every 12-year-old boy, and now they've started giving something to girls too, but that's more recently. Every
Really?
12, and the bishops are the ones that have to sit down with the 12-year-old boys. The Mitt Romneys, Mitt Romney was bishop. He had to sit down with 12-year-old boys and tell them not to masturbate. Can you think of anything crazier? I would have to sit down with every 12-year-old boy in my church and say, don't masturbate.
Well, and they have to sit down with the young women also, right? I mean, they all speak with the bishop, which I've always thought was really, really creepy.
It is.
That some untrained layman, I mean, the LDS Church has lay clergy, right? There's no special training. There's no formal education or anything. They're called.
They're calling.
Yeah. They serve a calling in the church. And so you have these lay clergy people who are interviewing preteen and early teen boys and girls talking about whether they touch themselves or have impure thoughts. I've always thought that was really, really creepy.
It is. You've seen that video that came out from Brigham Young, produced by the president of Brigham Young University, and was it? Montana?
Is it the one with the war scene?
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
Wow, that had high production values.
It did, but it was still creepy.
It was really creepy.
Well, it actually gets a little bit even worse than that because, having been someone who was engaged in premarital sex, and still active in the church means you have to have regular bishop meetings, to discuss that, talk about it, repent of it, that whole deal. But because the church has specific prohibitions on certain sexual acts, you have to get a little bit specific about exactly what it is you're doing. And so does the female.
Yeah, right.
In a room by herself with the bishop about exactly which actions are made and which ones are not. So it's, figure out exactly where so it's even creepier than you thought.
Did you, you referred to, you started this conversation with respect to Mormons. Have you heard the 2 interviews I did with the Mormon couples?
No, I haven't.
Were these on your podcast? I have 2 different interviews, both with married, ex-Mormon couples. They're all 4 of these people are atheists now, but it's fascinating to hear them talk about, wearing the magic underwear and all that sort of stuff. And going through all the stuff. And 2 of them, if you listen to it, 2 of I think it's the first interview I did with, can't remember their fake names. I never use real names. But they met on mission. They met on mission in Guatemala.
Yeah. Okay.
And then they came back and got married. And it's just crazy to listen to them. But the Mormons are, I think, they were the Scientology of their age.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it cracks me up because here in Utah, it's so full of Mormons. It's so densely packed. It's a target-rich environment of Mormons. And, if you're not Mormon, you're generally Catholic or a non-believer, or you're a former Mormon who is now a non-believer, because it seems like most people when they leave the LDS Church, because it falls so much further along the crazy scale, that once you leave the LDS Church, it's really easy to look at all of the other religions and go, well, they're crazy too. I mean, I bought all of those religions plus a little bit more crazy or a lot more crazy, I guess. And so, if I subtract off all of the lot more crazy, the rest of it is still just fucking crazy too. So a lot of them abandon that just as easily.
Well, it seems to me, and excuse me. I've been reading about kind of the fake statistics of the Mormons, and they, of course, they claim they're growing, but the evidence looks like they really aren't.
Their numbers are hugely inflated.
Right. Yeah.
It's all those dead people that they baptize that they include in their numbers.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think
they have some pretty nasty characters. I wouldn't want to have to be with those dead people.
Oh boy.
I mean, they baptized Hitler, I hear.
Yeah,
so
a few times,
yeah.
I think.
I think 6 times, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he needed a lot, I guess.
Yeah, he needed it. Of course, it's all up to them in the spirit world to accept that or not, but, you know.
Right.
They've just given him more and more opportunities than everybody else.
Right, yeah.
There you go.
There's two things I think that really stood out to me in your work, and one of them was, we'll get to my favorite part in a minute, but the interesting point that you made about why there are no women in the New Testament, and I thought that was such a fantastic and interesting question to have. If you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, I did my own research. I've kind of had this wandering in my head for years. Where'd all the women go? And they certainly aren't leaders, and
Right.
they have people like Dorcas is mentioned here and there. But there's nobody there. And Paul actually mentions some women that he's praising and thanking for being such good helpers for him when he was in their particular town. I don't remember their names, but he names 2 or 3 of them. So it was clear that women were involved. And there's actually some evidence that there was quite a bit of female involvement in Christianity real early on. Mm-hmm. So I was asking, where did they go? And I started doing my investigation, and slowly but surely it dawns on me, they were written out. Somebody edited them out. Why do you want to edit women out that were contributing? Why is Mary Magdalene's role changed, and appears to have been changed? Certainly the Catholic Church changed her role. There's a lot of those kind of questions in there. And it dawned on me, wow, you got a patriarchal religion. From the very beginning, females are, as Paul says, women are, I've got a fly. It's hard to concentrate when you got a fly banging.
I saw it on the end of your microphone a little bit earlier, and I thought, oh, that might fuck things up in a minute.
Moth or something. I hope you can edit that out.
Probably just horny.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's not go there. So I was writing Sex and God in that particular chapter where I was writing about where the women go. And I wrote that piece. I thought, okay, I can't be the only person that's ever thought of this. So I sent it off to Richard Carrier, because I figured I've got a lot of respect for Richard Carrier and what he's done. And he's, of course, the expert in this area. Mm-hmm. And Richard reads it. And he basically says, wow, okay, I never thought of that either. Thinking, okay. And he says, but you're right. Somewhere between like 60, 80, and probably 125 or a little later, somebody went in and just edited out all the women, because the women were getting too uppity and they were starting to demand a role. But if you've got this myth that women are born impure and they're the tempters, and the original sin concept of you're born broken to begin with, then you can't have the broken people leading the movement. And really, if you look at the way the Old Testament treats women and the way patriarchal Judaism treats women, they're always second-class citizens. Well, here you have a play for women to be first-class citizens, equal citizens to men, and you can't have that.
Right.
And there's some evidence, according to Richard Carrier, that women were equal to men for a short period of time in some churches, as the church is growing. Well, they got shut down pretty fast after not too long. So yeah, it's really cool when you realize what's going on here, that you can't have women leaders. And then of course you've got the forged Timothys, parts in Timothy that said women should keep their mouths shut in church. And that's probably, I think that's one of the forgeries. Well, that's because a misogynistic person is coming back in 100 AD and editing or adding letters to whatever Paul wrote. Now, maybe even earlier than that, probably was earlier. I am not an expert in this area. I know enough to be dangerous, but I also know enough to check it out with people who are experts like Richard Carrier. Sure. And I did. So I think thanks for asking that question. It's something we never think about.
Right.
Why did the women disappear from the New Testament?
Yeah, and that's why I thought it was so fascinating. And you know, when I first heard that question posed, I had the same kind of reaction Dr. Carrier had. Yes. What? Of course they must have been a part of that movement. Yeah. I mean, they're a part of all of our lives all the time now.
Right.
I mean, why would that be any different? Of course where are they? And so.
And let's take the next step, because once you identify that sex is evil and it's dirty and it's filthy and it's of the devil, which is what they believe, and the evangelicals still believe it. The Josh Duggars certainly do.
Oh, well, Paul was all about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Then to have a baby means you had sex. To have sex means you are unclean. And women are unclean. Well, Mary had sex only with the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Mary never had sex, so she could stay pure. Every other woman on this planet is tainted by this original sin.
Right.
The interesting thing is women can't have babies in the Bible. No women can be a leader that had a baby because she obviously had sex. Now, you can be a saint in the Catholic Church, for example. A lot of saints were virgins, died virgins, that sort of stuff. They magnify the virgins in that particular religion. Every time, the other side of that coin, and we haven't got to that yet either, is that if there were children, then there were also grandchildren. And those would have been descendants of the apostles. Well, you really have to be careful, as the Mormons found out the hard way. If the apostles have children, then they're going to be looked at as something higher and better. And so you have to keep those under control. The Mormons couldn't get Joseph Smith Jr. under control, so they had a split.
Yes.
The Muslims had the same problem. Muhammad's kids said, we're the leaders, and the imams, the spiritual people, said, no, we're the leaders, and you have a split between Sunni and Shia. It just happens every time. So you have to be very careful about the genetic descendants. So for example, if Jesus had kids, which if he existed, he probably did have kids. Those kids were edited out.
Right.
So the kids and grandkids, it's not just the women, it's the kids and grandkids were edited. Where's the grandkid of Paul? You do not call somebody a rabbi in the 1st century CE unless they're married and probably have kids. Period. Anybody that says anything different doesn't know what they're talking about. How many gay rabbis were there out there that weren't married and didn't have kids?
Right.
It just doesn't compute. Now, I've heard Christians say, well, they were Essenes and Essenes were celibate. Bullshit. That's not what Jesus said. Jesus did not claim he was an Essene. Nobody's proven he was an Essene. And none of these 12 guys following him around, some of them were married. We know at least 2 of them were probably married. Now, the rest were gay, but 2 of them were married. I mean, I just really, this stuff really just blows my mind that nobody's looked at it. And
yeah, that's something that has never crossed my mind at all.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, and the only other option you left open there was celibacy, which you've already been very clear about in your works that's not a fucking option for sexual human beings. So that's right out.
Yeah, you're right. 12 celibate guys, right?
Yeah.
We know that when they say they're married, when people say, we know Peter was married and one other apostle, I can't remember. We know for sure, but probably all 12 of them were married. Because how are you anything over 20 years of age as a male practically in that environment and not be married? It was a requirement to get married and have children. And the fact that nobody says who was married tells us somebody was editing that part out.
Yeah, it's a really suspicious silence, right? That none of that is discussed at all among any of the apostles.
Yeah, right. No. Now I've asked I used to have 2 friends that were pretty big on one was a professor at a major theological school in Chicago. We aren't friends anymore. When the God virus came out, he suddenly stopped talking to me. But
wonder why that.
But I could ask him that question and say, well, it was just a patriarchal society and women weren't valued or anything. Well, I said, but women weren't valued, but their children and grandchildren were.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Muhammad's children were valued. I mean, Fatima is still seen as a saint among among Muslims.
Well, yeah, and particularly the male children would have been valued, right? I mean, unless somebody wants to try to make the argument that all of the apostles, sure, they may have been married, but they only had female children, and so it doesn't matter. That seems really weird too.
Right. And here's another interesting thing. If you look at the writings of the Ante-Nicene fathers that were, your listeners may not know who that is, but there was a group of writers, Origen and Tertullian, who was writing between the end of the death of the last first Christian group and up to about 220 CE. So there's a lot of writing in that area. And some of the strongest writing the Catholic Church points back to, Origen and Tertullian are two of the. Tertullian is thought of as the father of the Latin Church. Period. Mm-hmm. You can't be a Catholic expert and not know a bunch about that guy. He's just very important to him. But you can read all these people. Not one of them mention any of the descendants of anybody. What's going on? That just is mind-boggling. There could be no descendants written. I'm not even talking about in the Bible. There's lots and lots of writing about stuff that's not in the Bible. Why wouldn't they talk about the descendants there? Again, they got edited out.
I've actually never even thought about that, and that's got my brain working a million miles an hour right now.
I thought that was such an interesting point to bring up, and that's why I wanted to highlight that. I thought it was fascinating. Now I have to go do a whole bunch of more research, but
we'll have to.
That's always good.
We'll have to dive into that a little bit more in a future episode for sure, because that's never crossed my mind either.
Where are the ladies?
Yeah, right. Well, it's not just the ladies; it's the children and the grandchildren
too, right? And and even Muhammad's wife, is mentioned by name. Right. And it's very hard to find a more misogynistic culture, right, than Islam. And even that's
they don't say sex is dirty and filthy and you'll die because you engage in it. Whereas the early Christians did.
Well, okay. Yes. Fair.
Huge difference in the way they viewed sexuality.
Right.
Muhammad was giving people lessons on how to have sex.
Yeah.
And the guys, he wasn't giving the gals any, but he was sure giving the guys.
Sure, yeah.
Really? I didn't know that at all. What do you mean? Is that in
there's a lot in Hadith and in the Quran about how to have sex with a woman, when to have sex with a woman, what's permitted, what's not permitted. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And he was very positive about having lots of sex. There's no problem there. Muhammad had no trouble talking about sex. But you don't touch a woman and you don't let her touch you when she's on her period.
No.
Yeah. So he still had that kind of misogynistic bullshit.
Well,
you had something else you were going to say, man.
Yeah, I wanted to move to my favorite part, the masturbating master. This kind of ties in a little bit, and I love the idea of a perfect savior reaching up his Iron Age dress to give himself a little shepherd's pie with his holy hands.
Those are your words.
Those are my
mine.
words. Those are not the words of Dr. Red. No. But I mean, it makes total sense. I mean, if all males or sexual males are taking themselves out to dinner, then he would be the same.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, he would be extremely unusual if he weren't masturbating. And let's assume that he was asexual, because I think that's a possibility. First of all, I'm not sure he existed, but if he existed.
Yes, of course.
If he existed, he could have been one of the 1% of the population that has no sex drive, and so he never masturbated. That's entirely possible. Highly unlikely. So, but why is somebody who doesn't have a sex drive, never masturbated, never had sex, what gives him the authority to tell us anything?
Well, he's got a God complex, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. And a psychologist friend of mine, is fond of saying, if you talk to God, you're religious. If God talks to you, you're psychotic.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of evidence that people like this Jesus character probably had some, probably was schizoid. There was probably something there. I don't know if you've heard or know about the difference between schizophrenia and a schizoid.
I'm only aware on the level that there are some schizoaffective disorders that can be classified with delusions of grandeur, which is maybe more along this line, that aren't necessarily schizophrenic per se. Maybe I'm totally wrong.
No, you're right.
Okay.
target there. Yeah, you're very accurate in many ways. But it's like the schizophrenic person is generally not in control, but a schizoid person can look pretty normal and sound pretty normal. And there's actually some interesting anthropological writing and evidence that in some cultures, schizoid people, if you think about schizoid, it's kind of halfway between being, not having this problem at all, being mentally all there, and a schizophrenic person who's out of control and can't control the voices in his or her head. It's almost always male, by the way. Schizophrenia is much more a male issue than a female issue. But if you think of somebody halfway in between, somebody who can act normal but still hears voices, those people were shuffled into a priestly role in many cultures. It appears that's what's gone on in other cultures. So you get these people who, I hear the voice of God, and I can talk to you like a normal human being.
Right.
That could be pretty powerful in a culture that believes that God can talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
That may have been what this guy Jesus was doing. Certainly there were many people out there. I mean, you got these Isaiah and Josiah. Yeah. You got all these other
Joseph Smith.
What, Joseph
Smith, yeah. John
he
John
was
of
just
Patmos.
a fucking con artist is what he was.
Yeah, yeah, he was out. He seems like more of just like a socio or psychopath.
Yes, I think so.
But so what about? I mean, not to delve too deeply into the psychology of this stuff, but I mean, aren't schizo disorders? Don't they usually manifest in males mid to late 20s, or am I totally off on that?
Yeah,
I mean, because Jesus died at 33, but I guess we don't know much about him before then, really.
We don't know anything about him.
Yeah, we don't know anything about him before then.
Yeah. So, they start manifesting. I mean, it can come even earlier. I don't know. I don't want to get off into that. There's a lot of, I'm not an expert in that area. I would be talking off the top of my head about stuff I don't really know much about.
That's what I do all the time anyway. So.
I mean, I studied it back in graduate school, but I haven't done that nearly as much. Yeah. So, but you were asking, what were you asking about the masturbation master?
Oh yeah. No, I just, I think we mostly covered it. I mean, certainly unless he was asexual, which seemed very unlikely, or,
right.
But didn't exist at all, which is kind of more where I fall in line.
Right.
Then, if he was a normal sexual male, then it's, as far as you're concerned, it's almost a certainty that he would have been a masturbating man.
Right.
Which is completely counter to any Christian. I mean, it doesn't matter which one you pick.
I ask Christians all the time, and they just, their mouths drop open. They have no
right.
answer.
You ask them if Jesus masturbated?
Yeah, I would so send your listeners to a video. You can just YouTube it. Go to YouTube and just Google, "Did Jesus masturbate?"
Yes.
It's a talk I've given several times around the country. It's very popular talk. But I just asked a stupid question. Did he masturbate? Now, have you ever heard anybody ask that question before?
No, I think it's brilliant. I love it.
I haven't either.
Yeah. It's so engaging too, because no matter which side of it you're on, you want to know the answer to that.
Well, and you kind of feel like you have to speak up too, right? Like if you're going to defend JC, you're like, no, of course not.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, it just seems almost, and I think there's some remnants of religion still in there, in the fact that we've never even considered the question, where are the women?
Yeah,
Did Jesus jack off? I think
it just stabs at the very heart of religious sacrilege, right? I mean, it's
perfect. Yeah.
It's like the bullseye.
Yeah, we'll throw a link up too, to this episode, to those talks that you gave about that. And also to your podcast. And we want to talk a little bit about, recovering and secular therapy, the Hotline Project. We can throw all that stuff
before we get off onto that. I'd just like to kind of finish up the discussion about the masturbation. The reason I try to come up, I mean, my theory is that the weak spot of religion is sex and sexuality. That's the weak spot. And if we can attack them at that level and show the absurdity of their own position. That's why I asked those Christian kids, do you masturbate? Mm-hmm. I knew they weren't going to raise their hand, but I did know. I said, here, I'm a 65-year-old guy and I masturbate. And I'm raising my hand, and nobody else in the room is raising their hand. Well, David Fitzgerald was in there, so he was raising his hand too.
Waving his arms.
Yeah, of course.
Both hands.
Yeah,
He's ambidextrous, probably.
He's got the European grip and everything.
All I wanted to do is plant this seed in their mind that, okay, it's perfectly normal to masturbate, and yet everybody in this room is ashamed to talk about it. And the people and the sponsors in the back are about to shit their pants about this. I just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah.
And so in my work, I try to kind of find the angle that nobody's thought about. Did Jesus masturbate? What happened to the women, grandchildren, and children in the Bible? If I can find those angles that nobody's thought about, because the Christians certainly haven't thought about him.
Right.
And I think you're right, Matt. We haven't thought about him either because we're still infected with this religious bullshit. We need to get out of this religious box.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think it's so important for us to be very open about our sexuality. And I'm about as open as I can possibly be. Anything can be. And it's intentional. I mean, some people say I talk about masturbation too much. I don't think so, because I'm the first sex partner I ever had. I may be the last sex partner. So how can you talk about something like that? And if you don't love yourself, who are you going to love?
Right.
So you put all those things together, and that just goes in the face of religious sexuality.
Yeah.
And that's why I call my podcast the Secular Sexuality Podcast.
Yes.
Because I'm into secular. I'm not a Catholic sexual. I'm not a Mormon sexual. I'm not a Muslim sexual. I'm a secular sexual.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean? It's so fun to explore this and challenge people. I probably get on average 1 to 3 emails a day from people saying, wow, I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I've been guilty. I'm an atheist. I've been an atheist for 30 years and I still feel guilty about masturbating. Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You're still infected with some crazy God virus ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I think that's beautiful.
Enough said on that.
Well, I'm just kind of curious. So, a little bit about your credentials and just kind of what led you into making this your specialty. I mean, I've heard you talk about your grandmother and slapping away the hand of, I believe it was your brother when she was changing brother. Yeah. So what was it that led you to make this your specialty?
I specialized in this beginning at the age of 12 years old when I got real interested in sex, and I wanted to ask I asked my mom all sorts of questions that she got tired of having to answer. So she took me to the library. I wrote about this in Sex and God, actually. She took me to the library and she checked every book out that I couldn't check out. Back then, if you weren't an adult, you couldn't check these certain books out,
Uh-huh.
So here I get all these books. I bring them home, and I'm even at that age, I was a pretty good reader, and I'm just consuming these things. And by the end of about a week, I've read about everything we brought home. And I realized there's nothing in here. They're not telling me diddly squat. Just when they get to the good stuff, they say, talk to your priest or minister about that. So at that point, I realized something's wrong here. But my mom was fairly sex positive, for being a fundamentalist. She walked in my bedroom one day and caught me masturbating. And, she sat down on my bed and she says, it's all right. I was about ready to cry. I was really upset. And she sits down on my bed and she says, it's okay. You won't do it when you get married.
Oh.
Well, that didn't turn out to be true either, but that was pretty sex positive for somebody in 1962.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
So I just have always been interested in sex. And then I went in, I got my undergraduate in anthropology and sociology. And I was just looking at the other day. I've still got this paper. I wrote it in my junior thesis. I went to Friends University, a nice little Quaker college. Just think the acronym Friends University.
FU.
Right. And then if you add Friends University you had Friends University of Central Kansas.
Wow.
It sounds completely appropriate for you, Dr. Ray.
Right. And I got to say this. I got a great education there, but it was a very liberal school. Since I left, it's become a fucking evangelical stronghold. It is terrible to see my alma mater become as religious as it is. But anyway, I wrote this paper on the Havasupai Indians who live in the bottom of the Grand Canyon. I even spent a whole week. My then new wife and I went down there and spent our honeymoon. Sounds crazy, spending a honeymoon at the bottom of the Grand Canyon studying Indians, but that's what I did when I was a junior. And the thing I learned was, wow, their sex lives are really different than ours. And the female seems to run the show in this tribal culture. And the main thing that's changed is Christianity came in and told them that was wrong. So yeah, that part of it's changed. But that really got me thinking, well, why is Christian sex so different than Havasupai sex? And Havasupais had their own kind of tribal religion. I won't go into all that. I'd give a whole talk on that too, but it's not on YouTube. Anyway, so it just, Dan, I just got so fascinated with it. And then I decided I was going to be a minister. I got my master's degree at Scarrett College for Christian Workers in Nashville, Tennessee. And during that time I was there, I got hit on by more gay guys than I couldn't believe there was that many gay people in a seminary. I was raised in Wichita, Kansas, a really conservative area. And I go to Nashville, Tennessee, and half of the males on that seminary are gay. And they're hitting on me. Well, I didn't know what to do. I'd never met a gay guy before in my life that I knew of. So again, I'm being challenged here. Here's Christian guys. They're going to be mostly youth ministers and they're all gay and they're hitting on me. And I mean, all this it starts messing with your head. You realize everything you were taught is just crazy. Now, I will say at that time, Scarrett College was an extremely liberal seminary, extremely liberal. It was right across the street from Vanderbilt Divinity School, which is also extremely liberal. So, I should have known. I mean, I could have known, but I didn't. I was too naive at that time. But then I went into psychology and I'd studied Albert Ellis. I don't know if you've ever heard of Albert Ellis, but he was he's probably the second best, greatest sex therapist of the 20th century and probably the number one psychotherapist of the 20th century.
I'm sure it was a relative of mine, then I'm positive.
He was an amazing guy to study with, and he's challenged you so much. You had to be careful because this guy just rip you to shreds. You know how illogical and irrational you can be, and he would really tear you apart, but he'd also put you back together. One thing he really challenged me about was masturbation and sex. And I'm married, and I'm in a marriage that's not very sexual and that sort of stuff. So I wasn't too happy around that part of it. And he just changed my mind. And from then on, I've been real interested in human sexuality. But more importantly, I've always been interested in religion. Now, so you get this intersection of religion and sexuality. And I start researching that, Dan, and I find nobody's ever written a book on religion and sex, except the Christians. Christians write lots of sex. But they're all Christian sex. They're Mormon sex. They're Baptist sex. They're not human sexuality. There's nothing scientific.
It's all prohibitions.
Yeah, they're all prohibitions. So I said, I'm going to write a book that shows how religion impacts sexuality. And I was just shocked that nobody had ever written a book like that.
Yeah.
And the fact is, it's obvious on the nose on your face that religion impacts sexuality. Sure. Why the hell has no one written a book about this before?
Well, because of the God virus.
Exactly. It blinds you to the obvious, doesn't it? It blinds you to the obvious.
It sure does, yeah.
Yeah.
It sure does.
So the fact that you guys are saying, I hadn't thought of this, I hadn't thought of that before, just warms my heart.
Oh, good.
Because some of your listeners will be saying the same thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. For sure.
I want to challenge people to rethink the stuff. My big goal in life is to get atheists to rethink how much they really are infected with the God virus, even though they've been atheists for years.
Right. Right. I think.
Well, and even people like Ryan who grew up in a secular household. I mean, he's never been infected with the God virus necessarily. I mean, at least not directly, but he still suffers from the ancillary effects of it.
Not even considering some of those things.
Yeah.
Right.
And atheist children are being affected by it too. Because if you think that atheist kid goes to school with a bunch of Christians who are going to tell him masturbation is wrong, or tell her masturbation is wrong, or premarital sex is wrong, or be forced to go to an abstinence-only course in their school district. I mean, all those things are religion imposing their crazy sexual standards on the rest of us.
You know, I remember being in junior high and having conversations with my friends where it's like, oh, I'll bet you were jacking off last night. And it was like supposed to tease and make fun of these people. And at the time, I didn't even have a fucking clue what they were talking about. You know what I mean? Like seventh grade talking about, oh, well, you were probably jacking off last night. And everybody's like, ha ha ha. And I'm like, yeah, I'll bet he was jacking off last night. I don't know what the fuck that means, but I'll bet he was doing it and it's bad.
Well, what you just described is what I call male shaming.
Yes.
And I'd send your listeners to see my talk on male shame or read my article. I published an article last year in American Atheist magazine, because what's happening in that locker room is males are trying to shame other males, and they use misogynistic concepts. That's where people learn misogyny, is in the locker room, usually that's one of the main places. And I try to document in that talk on male shame how even we atheists are programmed in misogynistic ways, or about, to be misogynistic, and we don't even know it. So, yeah. Well, I do want to make sure before we get out of here to talk a little bit about some pet things I'm interested in. Is it okay to jump into recovery?
Absolutely. Please do.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, my colleague and our executive director, I started an organization your listeners may be aware of, Recovering from Religion.
Fantastic organization.
Yes. Yeah, in 2009. And a couple of years later, we got Sarah Moorhead as our executive director. And that woman knows how to kick butt.
I love Sarah.
Yeah.
I don't think,
including mine sometimes.
You're right.
Yeah, I love Sarah. I think she does a fantastic job, and I think she's doing a great job everything she touched just kind of turns to gold. She has the Midas touch.
She does. She knows how to organize. She knows to put people together. She's good at understanding what people need. So anyway, we started Recovery from Religion, and that's having huge impact. We're in 3 continents now and 5 different countries, and got programs going on around, and we're all volunteer. We would like to have this change, but nobody gets paid a dime until this week. And we brought Neil Carter on. We did a GoFundMe thing, and we got Neil enough money to survive for like 3 months while he comes on board and really starts trying to help Recovery from Religion get its financial feet on the ground, because we've just run off of a dime.
Yeah, and Neil is also fantastic. I contributed to that. I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. So Neil's going to be on board. It's going to allow us to do a lot more things, to have a paid staff. I mean, how long can you ask people like Sarah Moorhead to work for free? And she's been doing it for like 4 years now. And the woman's putting 40, 50, 60 hours in. She puts more hours in than most of us doing our regular jobs.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's not the only thing she does either. I mean, she's also helping to organize the Reason Rally. I mean, she's all over the place. Yeah.
She's president of Apostacon.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's going to happen in Dallas here in a couple of weeks. I'll be at Apostacon if anybody's going to be there.
Yay.
And while I'm at Apostacon, I'm actually going to look for a few people to talk to and interview for my own podcast. So if anybody's got a cool or interesting story they want to tell me, let me know, and we'll talk about interviewing them all in there. But anyway, back to we get off topic here.
Sorry.
So after RR came out, I started getting people saying, I need help. I need more than just a meeting once a month to talk to people. I need a psychologist, but I can't find one because all of them are religious, or they keep sending back to church, or want to pray with me, or stuff like that. So that inspired me to start the Secular Therapy Project, which really, if you or somebody needs good psychotherapy or counseling, go to seculartherapy.org. And there you can find, we have 240 guaranteed, certified secular therapists there. And you can probably find one close to you. And if you can't, you might be able to find one that'll do Skype, long distance kind of counseling. But anyway, if you can't find I mean, if you can't find a secular counselor, look at our place. Look at our website.
I think that's an amazing service.
Yeah,
I've had several people contact me who have said, I'm having a hard time leaving religion behind. I'm arguing with my family, with my friends, with my children. I tried to go to a therapist to seek help from them, and all they want to do is tell me to go back to church and repent, and that I'm doing these bad and horrible things. Where can I go for help with this? I think the secular therapy. The secular therapy. Jesus Christ, sorry. The secular therapy project is amazing. I love this concept. I think it is going to help so many people and has helped so many people.
Yeah. Oh, it has. We have 6,500 people on our client list.
That's amazing.
6,500 people looking for therapists among our 240. So yeah, and it grows. It grows too fast. I mean, we are actually growing. We're outgrowing our therapist base. We're getting more clients than our therapists than we're getting therapists.
Sure.
So if there's any therapists listening here that are, and you're secular, go register.
And you will be checked.
Yes.
Huh?
I was just saying, you will be checked if you try to apply.
Yeah, there's four of us. We're all atheists, therapists, and you have to pass muster with all four of us.
Yeah.
You have to convince us. You have to convince us two things. Number one, you're secular, and two, you used evidence-based psychotherapy methods.
Good.
I've always thought it was strange and damaging and dangerous that there are so many therapists out there who are not secular and who are so infected with the God virus that they try to shame other people into believing whatever or into holding whatever religious beliefs that the therapist has, which seems like this huge contradiction to me and a conflict of interest that they shouldn't be injecting those beliefs into their clients,
The reason that's happening is because so many therapists are being produced by religious institutions. Years ago, there weren't that many religious institutions producing social workers and PhD psychologists and master's level therapists. Now there are. You can get a PhD from Regent's University in clinical psychology. And that's crazy because 1 year of that PhD has to be spent studying Pat Robertson theology. Theology that says God sends hurricanes because of gays.
Right.
It's just crazy. But there are so many, and marriage and family counselor is absolutely rife with all sorts of religious people. The churches are really sponsoring a lot of people and paying and getting people certified as marriage and family counselors, and because they can practice right in the church. Mm-hmm. So you can go get your marriage and family counseling right in your home church. Well, it's pretty clear you're not going to get good secular therapy there. You're going to get something else. But the next thing I wanted to mention about the recovery from religion is this new initiative that just went up in just this past April, the Hotline Project. Mm-hmm. And it's to serve people who need just to talk to somebody. You may live in Missoula, Montana. There's no recovering from religion group close to you.
Right.
So where do you go? You can pick up the phone and call Recovering from Religion Hotline and talk to a real life person who's really well trained and supervised and certified by us. We have 180 volunteers answering phones, 24 hours a day on the weekends and every evening. So we'd like to make it 24 hours a day every day, but we don't have the resources for that yet. But I'm just saying, if you're in a crisis, faith crisis, and you don't know what to do, and you want a neutral party, call us at the Recovering from Religion Hotline. And I say neutral party because we train people. You are not here to deconvert anyone or to convert anyone. That's not your job. Your job's just to listen. If somebody says, I still have faith in God, but I got to leave my family because they're all nuts, really fundamentalists or something, we'll say, well, take a look at the Unitarian Church or the United Church of Christ, or we'll send people to places. We're not here to tell you to leave church. We're here to help you find what works for you. Yeah, we're secular and we're not bullshitting you on that, but we want to help you get what you need. So yeah, the Hotline Project, 844. I doubt it. I got the, maybe you could put the number up.
I think that's correct, but we'll be sure to post it in the show notes
to do that.
Yeah, don't take my word for it. I could be wrong. But I know the I doubt it part's right. Yeah. So those are the two key things. And of course, I'd see if ask your listeners to look up my books, The God Virus and Sex and God. And
absolutely. Go buy them. Don't just look them up. Go buy the books, The God Virus and Sex and God.
I actually have both of them sitting on my nightstand in my bedroom right now.
Well, good. Have you read them?
Fantastic.
I am halfway. I've read all of The God Virus, and I'm halfway through the other one.
Okay. Great. Well, Matt, you obviously had read them. You were asking all the right questions.
Well, thanks.
He's our researcher.
It's kind of my role here, but
all right.
It's been such a pleasure to have you on, and I appreciate the time we've been able to spend with you. And so,
yeah, my pleasure. I appreciate it. I enjoyed talking to you guys. You came well prepared. That's always nice.
Good.
Yeah,
thanks. All right, Dr. Darrel Ray, thank you very much. And we could probably throw together another hour-long episode just on shame. I think just.
Yeah. Will you give me?
We touched.
Let me know. I'll be happy to talk again.
Well, great.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Darrel Ray. I really, really appreciate it.
All right. Talk again sometime, guys. Bye bye.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Nice. Dan's still recovering.
And we're back.
You missed Ryan.
We're back.
I know. Why would you do that during our moment of silence?
I don't think my singing was that great to begin with.
There's our moment of silence.
I've been watching Les Mis quite a bit lately.
Is that what that's from?
So you feel like you have to sing everything you say? I like the old version. I like the old version with Liam Neeson. I thought that was fucking awesome. The new movie, like,
I don't know, because
every fucking line is sang. It really, really bothers me. Although I do think. No.
Shut up. I hate Les Mis, dude.
Les Mis is awesome.
I hate that show.
Dude, what's the name of the female actress in that?
Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway. Yeah. Oh, I cried. I cried during her part when
she was really good.
She was fucking amazing.
She was the only one that was good.
Yeah.
Russell Crowe didn't sing very well.
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, Hugh Jackman did better than
Russell Crowe, but either way, I still prefer the old Liam Neeson version.
The only reason why I thought the Liam Neeson version seemed slow.
Did you?
I did.
Dude, it's like a 4-day fucking film, man.
It's kind of long.
Well, not that, I mean, just like, I think I like the newer one because it was more visually striking.
Well, it had more.
It had a waterfall
and tons of money thrown at it. Yeah.
But even I've seen the actual stage performance where they have the whole rotating stage where they're building the walls and stuff and having the battle going on. I'm like, that's badass. Like, even on stage, it's an incredible thing.
Like a theater in the round kind of thing?
Well, no, the actual stage itself would rotate.
Yeah.
So you can see the rebellion fighting on one side, and you can see the soldiers fighting on the other. So it'll rotate, so you can see both sides.
There's our moment of silence.
Yes.
I fucking.
Why was that not recorded?
I don't think I've ever heard Ryan sing before. That
B-roll. Damn.
I'm not really a very good singer. So
I think you did. I think you at least as well as Russell Crowe right there. That was fucking awesome.
Yeah, for sure. That.
Well, you also had headphones on to muffle it a little bit.
So, what do we got going on for tonight's show?
Well, we just got done with our interview with Darrel Ray,
which was
awesome.
Actually, are we going to want to put that there?
Yeah, we already said we were.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Now you got to cut this.
Well, but
there's our moment of silence.
But now I'm all confused.
No, you're good. You're good. You're straight. I fucked up. I got it.
All right.
Yeah.
We're good. This is kind of a longer one because we have a lot of shit to catch up on because we lost last week's episode.
I'm so disappointed.
But
not on purpose. Jesus HIV Christ joins Don Cheeto.
I know.
Yes, the graveyard of revolution.
In the abyss of non-hearings.
Graveyard of fucking up SD cards.
So I'm going to try to fly through this. I try to delete all the less relevant information out of this. Person with the forced... Jesus Christ.
Foreskin?
Person with the foreskin. Person with the fourth least original name behind Matt Mitchell, Dan Ellis, and Ryan Duffy, County Clerk Kim Davis, has again refused to issue marriage licenses to gay couples, this time in defiance of a U.S. Supreme Court ruling against her specifically. On Tuesday morning, blah, 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 denied licenses. She hung out in her room and she claimed that she was continuing to deny licenses under God's authority, quote.
Yeah, was that a U.S. SCOTUS or a Kentucky SCOTUS?
That was the
it wouldn't be SCOTUS for Kentucky. Was it a SCOTUS decision or a Kentucky Supreme Court decision?
The U.S. Supreme Court on Monday declined to intervene in the case, leaving Davis no legal grounds to refuse to grant licenses to gay couples. A district judge could now hold her in contempt, which may carry steep fines or jail time. And I would just like to know,
straight out of options.
Nice. I would
well, because she was in the 6th District Court and she had already exercised all of her appeals to the 6th District Court. So automatically, then she's allowed to go up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court basically said, no bad shit, this again. Crazy lady.
Yeah.
You know.
This has already been ruled on by us and 2 other courts. So we're not going to even hear it. But I just want to point out, though, at this point, that the district judge could now hold her in contempt, which could carry steep fines or jail time. And I want to point out that the gay couples who have been denied, some of them up to 5 times by her, have said, please don't give her jail time.
Yeah, they've specifically requested no jail time at all,
which I think is incredibly magnanimous of them.
Fines are A-okay, but they have specifically requested no jail time for her.
Yeah,
they're like, we understand she's ignorant, but she shouldn't go to jail for this. And we don't want her to go to jail for this. Fine her, do whatever. Just make her do her fucking job.
Yeah. And we're recording this show on Wednesday, September the 2nd. Tomorrow, Thursday, September the 3rd, is when she has to go stand in front of the judge.
Yeah. So her and her merry band of crews have been summoned to a contempt council.
The cadre of clerks will have to go before the court.
Yes. Davis has steadfastly refused to issue the licenses, saying her deeply held Christian beliefs don't let her endorse gay marriage. Which, by the way, doesn't fucking matter when you're talking about public policy.
Yeah, and she's not endorsing gay marriage by offering these licenses.
No, and
she's doing her fucking job.
Right, and to which I would say, which part of the Bible deals directly with U.S. constitutional law and the rights of American citizens? Which part of that Bible are you referring to? Mm-hmm. It's fucking none of it, stupid. Davis stopped. Hey,
fucking none of it, stupid. You're absolutely right.
Usually I call her dummy. So it's all right. Those are my words, man. Davis stopped issuing all marriage licenses in the days after the U.S. Supreme Court legalized gay marriage across the nation. She's been sued. Blah, blah, blah. Federal judge ordered her to issue licenses. Appeals court upheld the decision. Her lawyers with the Liberty Counsel. What kind of fucking attorneys counsel their clients to continue breaking federal law?
Christian attorneys.
Yeah.
If it's got a name like Liberty or...
Yeah, I know. They filed a last-ditch appeal to the Supreme Court on Friday asking that they grant her, quote, asylum for her conscience.
She should be checked into some kind of asylum.
Yeah. This will be the first time that I'm reading directly from the Bible.
Ooh. Hey, whoa. Does that mean end times?
Which version?
NIV.
Matt's reading right from the Bible. That's got to mean end times are coming.
This is even from the fluffy version.
Yep. Romans 13:1-7 states, everyone must submit himself to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, he who rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves.
You said himself and he who rebels. I don't hear a she in there anywhere. She's totally fine.
Okay.
She's covered.
Well, they didn't anticipate women in power at this point. That's also not biblical.
Yeah.
Actually.
Okay.
It's anti-biblical to have women in power. That's actually another
one
absolutely.
Absolutely.
I should have brought up.
Then what the fuck's she doing there?
My point is, she's going to claim biblical objections to this, but yet, as many people have pointed out, she's been married 4 times.
Yeah.
Marrying a divorced woman is anti-biblical. She's not supposed to be in power.
Although I believe that her 4th marriage was again to her 2nd husband.
I don't care.
I don't know.
But
It's all convoluted, but none of that fucking matters. None of that matters. None of her marriages, none of her births, none of her pregnancies, none of her looks, clothing, anything. None of that matters insofar as she's not doing her fucking job.
Yep.
And she's representing the state.
Yeah. So
the county.
She goes on to say, but at the end of the day, we have to stand before God, which is a higher authority than the Supreme Court. But as a public servant, you're required to keep your little believies to yourself and do what the fucking law says and stop taking a paycheck, is what I say.
Well, when you have a job dealing with the law,
you need to follow
do
the
what
law.
The law says.
Or stop taking a paycheck.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah, get the fuck out.
You can't just keep taking the money and not doing your job.
Yeah. Absolutely. She has every right to her religious beliefs. She does not have every right to a job in which she can't follow her religious beliefs. If you have a job, you need to do what the job demands, and the job demands that she follow the fucking law.
Yep. And I only hope that this ends up being an example that doesn't lead to bullshit religious privilege exemptions, which it doesn't seem to be, but that it leads to a precedent for punishment of clerks who refuse their civil duty.
Absolutely.
She says, quote, to issue a marriage license which conflicts with God's definition of marriage with my name affixed to the certificate would violate my conscience.
Oh, boo-hoo. Find another fucking job.
Yeah. Is there
if you can't do your job, then don't do your fucking job. Find another job.
Yeah. And she says, it's not a light issue for me. It's heaven or hell decision. And she said that through her lawyers. This is the kind and merciful God, right?
No,
that would send her to hell.
Yeah, the kind and merciful God who would send her to hell for doing the job that she was elected to do.
Right, to give people the thing they've been waiting for their whole life. I was elected by the people to serve as the county clerk, she said. I intend to continue to serve the people of Rowan County, but I cannot violate my conscience.
She's not serving the people. No. She's not even serving the heterosexual couples anymore. She's not serving anybody.
Yep. And so I say this is a great example of why voting is so important. Because this bigot was elected in, and now her grubby claws are so deeply entrenched that multiple and consistent illegal actions and defying court direct orders can't even pry this parasite from her position.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for bringing up that she was voted into this,
we'll
position.
Get to that.
She was voted into this position. This is why your vote matters. You don't... I
especially on a county level.
Yeah, I hear people complain all the time. Well, when I vote for president in my state, it doesn't matter. You're kind of right. Maybe your vote doesn't necessarily matter. But you shouldn't only be voting in presidential elections. You should be voting in every single election in which you're eligible to do so. Yep. Because your vote matters. Mm-hmm. If your vote didn't matter, you wouldn't have people spending billions of dollars to try to get your vote.
Right.
Turn it purple.
Davis stopped issuing all marriage licenses in the June after the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage across the nation. As we've said, so she's doing nothing. She's been ordered to comply. She served as her mother's deputy for 27 years and was elected as a Democrat to succeed her in November.
She was elected as a Democrat?
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's Kentucky. Yep. They don't know what a Democrat or Republican means.
This is a Kentucky Democrat.
Yeah.
And she makes $80,000 a year, by the way,
for not doing anything. Job.
Yeah, it's more than I make.
Right. And so the removal would require impeachment, which would have to wait until the legislature's regular session next year or a costly special session. Davis refused to concede her religious freedom argument even after U.S. District Judge Dave Bunning ordered Davis that her 6 deputy clerks to appear at 11 a.m. on Thursday at a federal court in Ashland. Davis has said previously that 4 of her deputies share her beliefs. One was ambiguous, and one did not have a problem with issuing licenses to same-sex couples. But Davis has prohibited any of her deputies from following the law as well. So there's a person in there who would do this, but she said no.
That's the thing I keep seeing people point out. Well, so don't force her to do it. Get someone on there that will. Like, well, there are fucking people willing to.
But she's saying
she won't allow it.
So my question is, what's the charge for that? Are there any real consequences? Without that, the SCOTUS ruling is toothless. You know, this absolutely has to end with Davis paying her debt to society. That's the way this has to end.
But you know what? You know what, though, is that most of these city, county, state employees, when they're hired or when they're elected into office, part of their part of the agreement is that if they do something that will eventually end up with them possibly being sued for enacting, their position or acting out their position as a representative of the city, county, or state, the city, county, or state are the ones who are held liable for their actions, not the person themselves. So the city, county, or state is the body that will be responsible for paying for any contempt of court charges that she'll suffer. Matter, so it won't matter to her at all.
And she's
just writing this out so that she can eventually end up writing a book. She's going to go on speaking tours. She's going to have a GoFundMe account. Yeah, she's going to be rolling in the fucking dough for being a bigot.
Yep. Yeah. She's going to talk about how her religious freedom got her job taken away and all that.
Yeah. But it didn't.
No.
Her as holiness did.
Here's where it gets even better. The lesser known part of the article. The clerk's husband, Joe Davis, came by to check on his wife. He said that she has received death threats, but remains committed to her faith and is, quote, standing for God. As for himself, he said he believes in the Second Amendment. I'm an old redneck hillbilly. That's all I've got to say. Don't come knocking at my door. And I said, the perfect couple to have operating in an authoritative capacity.
If she believes in her God and that she's doing the right thing and that her God will protect her, his Second Amendment rights shouldn't fucking matter at all. That's a complete non sequitur.
She doesn't believe at all because there's already pressure for her to do things counter to her God. Why would that even be available?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complete non sequitur. I mean, it doesn't matter if she has complete faith in the Lord that she is doing what she's supposed to be doing according to his dictates. Then it wouldn't matter. His Second Amendment rights don't fucking play into this at all. Yeah. Not in the slightest.
I think he was saying that he's willing to kill someone if they come to his house.
Well, absolutely.
So obviously he doesn't believe in the thou shalt not kill.
Well, absolutely he is saying that, but if she is acting according to what her God wants, then her God should protect her. Her husband shouldn't have to.
I think they should test it.
All right. It gets better. Mr. Joe Davis goes on to point out that the gay rights protesters that have gathered on the courthouse lawn, he pointed at them and said, they want us to accept their beliefs and their ways, but they won't accept our beliefs and our ways. And I said, no. Get that extra chromosome out of the way so you can hear this clearly, okay? Your beliefs are legal to hold, but they cannot be used as a reason to make or deny matters of public policy. Being gay is not a belief, but it is now the law, like it or not. And your Second Amendment doesn't allow you to choose which laws you do or don't follow.
Correct.
The Kentucky clerk has been married 4 times, raising questions of hypocrisy and selective application of the Bible to her life, every Christian, and raising even more questions, in my estimation, about the mental capacity of the men in this town, given that Davis has the intellect and figure of a plate of mashed potatoes. As to the question of why she hasn't been fired, and I've been guilty of pointing this out on the show, so here's the clarification. Because she's an elected official, unlike many other government employees, the only way to remove Davis from her job is to have her impeached or otherwise removed by the state of Kentucky. Quote, no authority exists for her removal or suspension from the office of Rowan County government, so there's no oversight, no accountability. Watkins told the Moorhead News that Kentucky state government is the only entity that can move to have Kim Davis removed as Rowan County clerk. USA Today reported that Kentucky state legislature is not currently in session and that many lawmakers support her stance.
You know what? Then all the judge has to do is when she goes in for her contempt of court hearing tomorrow, say, you have been found in contempt of court. I will fine you $5,000 today, $10,000 the next day that you don't issue it, $20,000 for each day that you don't do it afterward. I will basically double the fine every day that you don't do this. And watch how fast the Kentucky legislature works to make sure that she's out of office or complies with the court's orders.
I almost wish you could just say, well, you got how much left on your term? Just over a year? Well, I guess you're in prison for the next year and a half.
Yeah, well,
they can't do that.
I would much prefer that they don't send her to prison, but that they find that the judge issues his decision and says you have been found in contempt. Yeah. And for every day that you don't do it, I will be doubling the amount that your office has to pay for this.
Yeah, we'll see tomorrow. I don't think she'll face any jail time, but but I really hope there's some stiff financial burdens placed.
Super stiff. Like I said, I hope he doubles it for every day that she's found in non-compliance.
I don't think that'll happen, but I hope it's stiff enough to really make an impression, that here's what's going to happen if you don't comply with the SCOTUS ruling, because without, like I said earlier, without any repercussions for disobeying the law, then it's a toothless ruling.
Then why bother?
Yeah, right. Blah, blah, blah. More stuff we've already covered. And then, when Kim Davis was first elected, this is her quote. "I promise to each and every one that I will be the very best working clerk I can be. And I will be a good steward of their tax dollars and follow the statutes and office to the letter." Failed on every bit of that statement.
Yeah.
She failed on every single bit of that statement.
And I would like to backtrack a little bit here.
Yes.
And say that, the couples who have brought this suit or who have complained about her not issuing the licenses and have said that they don't want her to face any jail or prison time, I completely disagree with them now, because if she, because
after hearing the statement,
because if the repercussions for her not doing her job are that she doesn't face any penalty, it's the county or the state that has to ultimately pay for this.
Right.
Well, then that will not change anything that she does whatsoever, right? But if she has to personally face the consequences of her decision, then maybe she'll change her ways.
Well, I think you've changed my mind, but not because of her. But I think if they do invoke financial penalties that the state has to pay, then that almost sets a precedent around the country for other clerks to have penalty-free religious exemptions from issuing licenses.
That they won't suffer any consequences whatsoever. And that's my point.
That's the danger.
Is that if she feels like that if she or everybody else who may wish to follow suit believes that they will suffer no consequences themselves directly, then why not do whatever the fuck they want?
Well, I found this where it says,
if it's only the city, county, or state that has to pay for the bullshit that she's doing, then why would any of them comply with the law?
For Kentucky, contempt of court is punishable.
Did you say Kentucky?
Kentucky. Kentucky. Yeah, Kentucky. Contempt of court is punishable by up to 6 months in jail per count of contempt.
I'm sorry, how long?
6 months per count.
Per count. She could be facing multiple counts.
Yeah. Well, I would say for each and every day that she's refused to do,
or each person she's denied.
For each individual she's denied.
Yeah, each individual for every day. Yeah.
Yeah. A party may ask the court to award attorney fees as an additional sanction where it appears after consideration of all the evidence that contempt was willful.
Which it absolutely is. It's absolutely willful.
Absolutely willful. There's no way that's not.
So
but it's not that there's any breakdown in communication or the office is out of papers or whatever. It's her willfully not following the law.
No, there's videos of her saying no.
Yeah.
I mean,
we are not doing it, where she's been given, or they're reading right to her. Here's a court order. It says you must. Nope.
Yeah. And then they're like,
God's authority.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're like, "Well, what authority what authority are you denying this on then? Because there's nothing legal left for you to stand on. So what are you denying this on? Nope, I'm just not issuing them. Okay, that's willful. That's
completely willful.
And I was going to point this out earlier too. The people that I think that live closest to the word of their biblical law have got to be close to the Amish. Has always been in my mind. But an Amish person will have machinery in a shop, not their house. They won't have electricity in their home. They won't use automobiles and all that kind of stuff, but they will have electricity to run some modern equipment that is needed in order to survive. They do not believe in electricity or using it, but they'll install it in certain places. Like if they run a store, they'll have a phone.
How is that more Christian though?
Well, I'm not saying they're Christian, but they're a religious organization that follows really strict laws, but they will put aside some of those laws in order to.
Oh, yeah.
Make it work. It's like they got no problem with going, I don't use electricity. I'm not supposed to use electricity, but I need to. In this situation, even though it's against my conscience, maybe, in order to survive and do the job I want to do, I have to use electricity.
Right. Well, Yeah,
I don't know
but there's no consequences. You know, I mean, they
I'm saying
they immediately pay personal consequences for not applying the electricity to the situation they need. You know, nobody's going to sue them over it. They're just going to suffer. They're just going to personally suffer
financially.
And so they're willing to overlook that because they can immediately tell what their financial sacrifice is going to be. So of course they overlook that.
But that's for their job, though. They'll sacrifice it.
I know,
use electricity for their job. Whereas, like, for her job, she's supposed to be fucking handing out certificates.
Yeah, but I think that's why this ruling of this contempt ruling is going to be so important, because it has the potential to set a precedent for either going light on county clerks that want to choose the conscience
debate,
conscientious objector.
Yeah, or they could really come down hard on her based on all of the rulings against her and this very specific ruling saying, yes, you fucking go back to your desk and issue these right now, which has happened at least twice.
Yeah. And if this
goes, they could come down really hard on her, and then all the other clerks around the country can take a step back and go, well, shit, I'm not going to risk that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can just wait 50 years for all the religious people to talk about how they led the way for gay rights.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Jesus, HIV, motherfucking Christ.
Don't you take that away from me. This was an interesting bit of news. We need less Chopra and more Tesla. Maureen Richard has managed to score £500 a month in disability allowance from French courts after claiming that she's allergic to Wi-Fi.
What?
Come on, France.
She's also allergic to gluten and GMOs.
Yes. She claimed that she suffers from electromagnetic sensitivity, and sufferers say that the exposure to mobile phones, Wi-Fi, and televisions causes extreme discomfort.
Well, don't use a TV or lights or live anywhere with a power grid.
What's the name of the show that is a spinoff from Breaking Bad?
Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul. So Saul's brother has this allergy to electromagnetic.
Oh yeah, he's always wrapped up in the blankets.
Such bullshit.
Oh, it's total bullshit.
It's psychological.
French courts have refused so far to pay disability benefits to people who suffer from electromagnetic sensitive people. So after winning this case, Maureen Richards said that her win was a, quote, breakthrough. They've had these claims before?
I guess.
What evidence came in changing the minds of the courts for this case? Europe is really making a strong move to take number one wooiest away from Los Angeles. Is nobody aware that the Earth's core generates an incredible electromagnetic field constantly?
It's what protects us from solar flares.
The sun does the same fucking thing.
If we didn't have that electromagnetism on our Earth, we wouldn't be here.
No, there's no way.
Like solar flares, we worry about a giant solar flare wiping out satellites and communication devices across the face of the planet, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sure this person ventures outside, even though they may be facing these, electromagnetic solar flares.
Also, do her eyes hurt all the time?
Probably.
Color vision is a bit of the electromagnetic field.
Yeah.
The spectrum.
Ooh, you're right.
You know what she can't do? She can't play with that game. It's that red thing where you turn the dials and it draws.
The Etch-a-Sketch.
Etch-a-Sketch. You can't use an Etch-a-Sketch. Definitely can't use an Etch-a-Sketch.
Or Light-Bright.
And I have to throw a shout out for my Chroma glasses again too, because I mean even so golfing yesterday.
Oh, did you wear them with golfing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because they're sunglasses. So,
okay.
So I wear them while I'm out golfing, and I marvel at all of the green colors that I can see out on the golf course now. But I noticed yesterday in particular that when I got the scorecard out of the clubhouse, and I didn't have my sunglasses on because I'd walked into the clubhouse to grab the scorecard and pay my dues and whatever to participate in the weekly tournament. But then I get out on the cart. I've been trying to walk a lot more this year, but I can't for the past few weeks because of my toe. The doctor, half of my fucking toe is numb because I've got this.
If you can't feel it already, just cut it off.
So I've been having to get a cart for the past few weeks, but I go and get the scorecard, fold it. It's a trifold thing. one of the last try on the fold is the front and back green designation for where they have the holes.
Yeah.
So I fold the card, I stick it into the steering wheel of the golf cart, and I throw my sunglasses on, and I notice for the first time ever that the scorecard itself is in like so many colors. There's like blues and reds and yellows and greens and fucking I stared at the scorecard.
Did you
for
crash
probably
the cart?
3 or 4 minutes before I even I threw it on the card, put on my sunglasses, and I was like, oh, wow, that's fucking amazing. Look how beautiful this scorecard is. That's so cool.
That's funny.
Before I even drove out to my car to get my bag and throw it on there or whatever.
Totally taken for granted by the color advantage. That's a mundane.
Every time I wear them, I notice something else that I'm just like, holy shit! I've never
didn't even know that.
My entire life I've just gone without seeing this.
So maybe like your car problems with all your like lights coming on your car, maybe they've always just been on.
No, they just came on yesterday.
They've just always been white. Now they're a little
because I was
orange.
wearing the sunglasses when I left work and it was fine, and I get to the golf course and then I go to leave the golf course and all the lights come on and I was like, fuck.
So her lawyer, Miss Richard, according to her lawyers, has been. Oh no, sorry. I got sidetracked a little bit.
Yeah.
Her lawyer agreed and told the Times that her win will set a legal precedent for, quote, thousands of people. Ms. Richard, according to her lawyers, has been living in a barn in the countryside because she cannot stand exposure to Wi-Fi.
Living in a barn?
Yep. The World Health Organization.
I think you mean manger.
Yeah. Yeah, we should have talked to Dr. Darrel Ray about this, or schizo disorder.
You can probably deck a barn up pretty fucking badass if you really wanted to.
Yeah. The World Health Organization chimed in on this, and they said that electromagnetic sensitivity is, quote, characterized by a range of non-specific symptoms that lack apparent toxicological or physiological basis or independent verification.
So it lacks everything needed.
Bullshit.
Yeah, this is exactly the kind of illness that needs to be diagnosed by Dr. Deepak.
Yeah.
It was also reported that tests for electromagnetic sensitivity had been unsuccessful, as people who claimed to suffer from the condition were unable to detect electromagnetic fields any more than people who weren't suffering from the condition. Kind of puts a gaping hole in the whole extreme discomfort claim.
Uh-huh.
Anyway.
Yeah, sounds like a whole lot of bullshit to me.
It's a whole lot of fucking bullshit.
I think she's just bitchy. No, that's insensitive.
So I've been listening to, I recently started listening to The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. I don't know if you guys listen to that.
I have not listened to that one.
It's really good. Like it's very, very science based, and they have a lot of really good information on there. I've been really enjoying it lately.
I like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Is that similar? It's got a lot of.
That's a book.
Yeah, but it's got a lot of information in it, and it's spacey.
Is that a podcast or is it a book?
There was a podcast, but it was short-lived. I actually looked it up.
I have also been listening very recently to the. I apologize that I can't think of the exact name. It's the Mormon podcast by Bryce Blankenagel.
Oh, Naked Mormonism.
Naked Mormonism. Thank you very much. It's really good. Like it goes through a whole lot of the history. I think I'm through episode 7 or 8
Was he the guy that you posted that video of yesterday or today?
No.
Was that you that posted that video?
No.
There's a guy that...
No, that was Tyson Holbrook.
Okay.
Who went through a bunch of actual LDS
scripture, like original
scripture and or approved literature to say, the LDS Church thinks that there are so many anti-LDS things out there, but you don't have to go far to find a bunch of misogynist, really fucking crazy things that are approved Mormon literature to find out that the LDS Church is bullshit. Like you can just study approved LDS literature if you are so inclined, rather than just going to church every Sunday.
Just listening to someone tell you bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go out and actually look at any approved LDS literature, you can see easily that even the approved stuff points you to the fact that the LDS church is bullshit.
Or very hypocritical of what they say they actually do.
Both.
Yeah. Got an interesting story here that I had ready for last week, but since we lost that show, we actually never even got to the story anyway. But
it better be interesting.
Girl in Honduras.
Punch you in the dick.
I don't use it anyway. So, girl in Honduras dies. Oh wait, no.
I think that probably happens in Honduras like every day.
But then she didn't. But then she did again.
Oh, okay.
Dead teen wakes up screaming, banging inside coffin. Family smashes tomb is the headline.
She died again?
Weird.
El Entrada, Honduras. A family in Honduras apparently smashed the tomb of their pregnant 16-year-old daughter after she reportedly woke up screaming and banging inside her coffin one day after she was buried. A day after Nessie Perez's funeral, her husband...
Did you say Nessie?
Yeah. Good old Nessie.
Nessie, probably.
Has she ever been to Ireland?
Yeah.
Spent time in a lake?
I think that's Scotland. And
Scotland. Yeah. There we go. That too.
And probably not. She's 16-year-old and pregnant and married, so...
And in Honduras.
And
God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
Very, very...
Her husband was visiting the gravesite when he heard banging and screams from inside the coffin. He spoke to Primer Impacto. As I put my hand on her grave, I could hear noises inside. I heard banging. Then I heard her voice. She was screaming for help. It had already been a day since we buried her. I could not believe it. I was ecstatic, full of hope. A cemetery worker also said he heard screams coming from inside the coffin.
And just ignored it, because it happens all the time. It. Well, it usually takes 3 days before the banging and screaming starts.
Oh, jeez.
And even then, you can just ignore it.
Ignore it, yeah.
It's closed coffin. They'll be buried eventually, and then it'll muffle all the sounds. It'll be fine.
God.
Well, this was the above ground tombs.
It'll be fine. It'll stop eventually.
Relatives told Primer Impacto the tips of Perez's fingers were bruised and the viewing window on her coffin had been smashed. Perez, still inside her coffin, was taken to a local hospital where she was declared clinically dead.
For some reason, I thought she had lived,
but then she didn't.
She wasn't dead before, but now she is.
So apparently, she had mysteriously collapsed inside her Honduras home. And she began foaming at the mouth, leading her religious parents to believe that she was, quote, possessed. After a priest attempted to perform an exorcism, her body became, quote, lifeless, and she was declared dead.
So the priest had absolutely no impact.
No.
Correct.
No impacto!
No primer impacto! Sorry, I didn't know you were going for that.
I wish I spoke Spanish so I knew what you were saying.
Goal! To hell. Doctors said Perez may have suffered a panic attack after hearing gunfire near her home, which could have temporarily stopped her heart.
Oh, Dios mío.
Oh, Dios mío.
Jesus. Or maybe she had an infection of some kind. I don't know if she had a history of seizures.
God virus.
Or the God virus.
Yeah.
Well, the family definitely had the God virus for thinking she was possessed and then burying her and not realizing she's not fucking dead yet.
I'm not quite dead.
But it will be soon.
Oh, quit complaining.
I love Monty Python.
Should we cover this one again?
What?
Uh-oh.
The Donald Truck still leading the race.
Yeah, well, he is.
That's different from Ronald Reagan. Great fucking picture, by the way.
Thanks.
I really, really like that a lot. I like it. If you're questioning what I'm talking about, go out to the Godless Rebelution Facebook page and take a look at the awesome drawing that Matthew did of Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
Based on Rick Perry.
Yeah. Ah, God, I don't even need to go into this article really. Donald Trump still on at the top of the GOP polls. Who fucking cares?
But you know who's rising in the Democratic polls?
So, you know
Bernie.
what?
Bernie.
Yes, Bernie is.
Oh, Bernie.
So the thing that we missed from or the thing that we lost last week because of the show, was that Donald Truck has been endorsed by David Duke.
Yes.
You may remember David Duke as the former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. I went on a little bit of a rant about this during the lost episode last week, where, you know, Donald Truck says a whole lot of racist shit and gets called out on it as being racist shit. And he says, I'm not racist. What are you talking about? It's just people complaining about me speaking the truth and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But then is endorsed by a giant fucking racist.
Yeah. Yes.
So if the things you say are racist and are pointed out by people as being racist and you deny that and then are endorsed by a giant fucking racist, maybe you should re-examine the things that you're saying.
Then I kind of hate when everybody's like, you gotta stop being so politically correct. Why are you so politically correct all the time?
Oh, you mean not racist?
Yeah, I'm like, you mean being accepting of people and treating people like humans and not putting them down all the time?
And not racist?
And not racist and bigoted and fucking cockshittery. They're fucking, I hate how people think that being PC or politically correct is,
I still would like to go over the Glenn Beck thing again too, because fuck that guy.
Oh, are we gonna play it again?
Probably.
Would you like to?
Yes. Maybe not right now. What else you got?
I got a story from last week out of the UK.
Okay, on the UK.
It's kind of a longer story.
Okay.
Kind of interesting though. It's weird that we never hear about stuff like this.
See, we got about 20 minutes left.
4 victims have been named since the disaster, but 4 families are still looking for their loved ones. Investigators this is terrible. I can't even. You do it. You should do it.
I was waiting for you to do
an Australian accent. Mine is Australian
British.
accent.
Yes.
It's supposed to be British.
Oh, all right. I can do that.
I was waiting for an elementary, dear Watson.
I was gonna say my Australian accent always turns into British. You guys fucking make fun of me.
I seriously have been trying to learn a British for months, and I just cannot nail it.
You have to have a British mother-in-law.
Read a bit of that. We'll see what you got.
4 victims have been named since the disaster, but more families are still looking for their loved ones. Investigators are continuing efforts to trace up to 7 further suspected victims of the Shoreham disaster. 4 victims have been named by their families, and the names of 2 others who are missing who have emerged. Police believe it's likely 11 people have died. Danielle Polito, named as one of those missing, was in the same car as Matt Jones, who was known to have died. The other, Mark Trussler, is thought to have been riding his motorbike on the A27 when the plane crashed on Saturday. Sussex police have said that more than 200 people have reported concerns from missing relatives or friends since the crash involving a jet taking part in an airshow display. Mr. Polito's family and friends have used social media to say that he was in the same car as Mr. Jones. Marino Polito, believed to be his sister, stressed on Facebook, however, that nothing has been confirmed that Danielle is gone. Mr. Trussler's fiancée, Giovanna Chirico, has also appealed on social media to ask if anyone had seen or heard from him. A picture of the couple has been shared online with the message, Mark Trussler missing, was riding an all-black motorbike. If anyone has details, please contact Giovanni Chirico. He was at Shoreham Airport yesterday, hoping he doesn't have mobile signal. Love you, sick babe X. Is that all right?
I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, that plane crash is pretty fucking horrible.
My mother-in-law is from Sussex.
Let me try it again.
Oh, you're gonna fuck it up.
I'm sorry, from Suffolk.
Worthing United players Jacob Shield, 23, and Matthew Grimestone, also 23,
wrong region.
Are thought to have been traveling in the same
wrong
car.
Region?
Yeah. Oh, the people know where part of Europe you're from by your accent.
When it was struck as air display pilot Andy Hill's 1950s Hawker Hunter jet crashed on the A27 West Sussex Coastal Truck Road before exploding.
Coastal Truck Road. My ex-mother-in-law is from Ipswich. Suffolk.
That's coastal.
Ipswich, Suffolk.
Ipswich is coastal. That was a port town.
Yeah. She used to tell stories of during World War II and having bombing raids and shit.
Do you know what's really interesting?
Like, she loves, like, fucking drippings on toast and fatback and all that good stuff.
You should look up a documentary called The Ipswich Man.
Yeah.
It's really fucking fascinating.
My in-laws were really cool people. I mean, my mother-in-law,
it's totally
or my ex-mother-in-law, you know, they're a whole lot older than my parents. My ex-wife, I think her mother was 40 something when she had her, and her father was 40 something when they had her. And, you know, my parents were 16 and 18.
Yeah.
So there's a whole generational gap between her parents and my parents. And, you know, of course, her father was a ex-Marine and Air Force. I think he's on 3 or 4 different monuments at Hill Air Force Base. He was one of the Chosin Reservoir few for the Korean War.
Yeah.
And he met her mother when he was stationed in England at, what's the Air Force base in England?
Meldenhall?
Yeah, at Meldenhall. He met her when he was stationed at Meldenhall and brought her back to the US.
Heathrow.
That's an airport. But yeah, they're very cool people with a whole lot of really, really interesting stories. And I mean, besides the monuments that he's on at Hill Air Force Base, for he fought at Chosin Reservoir. He's one of the Chosin few. He's in, I think, 2 or 3 different books as, I mean, this super heroic Marine. He was awarded the Purple Heart, I think, 2 or 3 times. Whole lot of really, really cool stories so after my ex and I got married and I'd sit around with my father-in-law Sal and drink a few beers and whatever, just sitting out on the porch grilling. And I don't know, after 9 or 10 beers, Sal would start telling me war stories and a lot of things that he had never told my ex-wife. And it was really cool.
I've heard some of those, the Korean War vets with Chosun and stuff. They're like, those bastards of Bastogne had nothing on us. Like,
well, he was a Marine during the Korean War and fought at Chosin Reservoir and joined the Air Force after Chosin Reservoir because the Air Force provided them so much support that I mean, the Marines marched for it was
it
was almost 3 days straight. I mean, no sleep, nothing. That was just marching in freezing conditions.
Weather.
I saw a documentary on PBS or something where it showed pictures of these poor fucking Marines around Chosin Reservoir. And for anybody who doesn't know, you should go and look this up. It's during the Korean War when the Chinese joined the war. And
it's a sadly forgotten battle.
It totally is. It's the forgotten few.
Yeah.
And so the Chinese joined the war and came into Korea around Chosin Reservoir. And it was like, fuck, I'm totally going to fuck up the numbers, so I'm not even going to bother to try. But it was like basically, you know, at least 10-1 number of enemy forces versus the American Marines who were at Chosin Reservoir and forced the Marines into retreat. And they marched for almost 3 days straight with no sleep, nothing. I mean, just marching out of there to get out of there. But it showed pictures of these guys, and it was around Thanksgiving or Christmas. I can't rember which holiday, but
I know they said it was like sub-zero temperatures out there.
It absolutely was.
They had the wrong uniforms on. They didn't have like the cold weather gear wasn't even there.
They were talking about the temperatures at Chosin Reservoir during this time, and like the regular temperature was something like 16 degrees below zero.
Yeah.
And with the wind chill, it was like 100 degrees below zero.
Yeah, it was.
And you have these guys out there in these like thin little BDUs.
Yep.
These tiny little jackets and like blankets over them. They showed pictures of these guys sleeping with snow covering their fucking faces, man. I couldn't believe it. Like it was amazing to me.
In most conditions, a normal person would have been dead day one.
Oh yeah. He was actually, so my ex-father-in-law was actually put into a body bag, zipped up, thrown into the back of a truck. And because he was in this black body bag sitting in the sun in the back of a truck, it warmed him up enough to where he woke up in a body bag in the back of a truck because everybody thought he was dead.
Yeah.
He had frostbite from the knees down. They wanted to amputate his legs, but he wouldn't let him. And I mean, for the rest of his life, he had problems with his legs.
Yeah.
But
frostbite never goes away.
Oh yeah, it was just a fucking amazing stories that this guy would tell.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah. War is not pretty, man. It's fucking awful.
Right. I know the military channel had done a documentary on it last year, right around Veterans Day. They only aired it once. I'm like, I want to see that. The whole thing was all about the Chosin Reservoir, and I'm like, I would have liked to have seen that, but I get to see the original airing. And
yeah, the Chosin feud. They used to have reunions and everything. I think at the last reunion when Sal was still his name is Sal Marchese. You can probably do a Google search and find all kinds of shit on him. I think at the last reunion for the Chosin feud, there were like 40 people. And that was all of the surviving members. Like everybody who was still alive went to this. Just, it was amazing. He was a really good dude. I miss him quite a bit.
Shall we get to the Glenn Beck?
Sure.
Now we're going to talk about a really bad dude.
Glenn Beck. Fuck this guy so hard.
Mm-hmm.
So by now, I'm sure you've all heard about the shootings in Virginia. Whether you've seen the video or not, videos, I guess, because they had that. There are basically two different videos. There is the live on air interview of this reporter in Virginia interviewing a woman,
politician. Was she?
I think she may have been like a city council person, something like that. Talking about development, development of this particular area.
No, the person the reporter was interviewing.
Yeah. Oh. So it's a reporter, a cameraman, and this other woman who they're interviewing. So they have the live footage of that they're airing live during their news program
at like 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And you hear gunshots and you see the camera fall to the ground and hear the female reporter running off screaming, whatever. But then there was also a video put online on Facebook and I believe on Twitter from the shooter's perspective where did he use a GoPro?
I think he used his cell phone. He used something. I was assuming cell phone, but I don't know what he used.
Yeah. He recorded the video of him attacking this reporter and cameraman and the woman that they're interviewing. And the video from his perspective is really fucking weird and frightening, right? Because
you know what's going to happen.
Well, yeah, you know what's going to happen because you've heard the story. So you see him, walking along this boardwalk up to the reporter and the cameraman and the woman they're interviewing, and you see the cameraman getting some background scenery of this development of the town or whatever, and he's filming that, and then he's panning slowly to his left to bring the reporter and the person that they're interviewing back into frame. And of course, most people when they're reporting things like this, they try to ignore all of the background people, people who are just walking around, who may be trying to get on camera, whatever. They just kind of try to put them out of their minds and keep them in the background, ignore them, whatever. So clearly they probably would have figured or have noticed some person walking up to them, but they're trying to ignore them or keep them out of the shot or whatever. Just do their job. And you see him approaching them and then get very close to him, and nobody's looking directly at him or addressing him or anything. And through his camera angle, you see him raise his handgun and point it at the reporter and then whisper, "Bitch." And there's no reaction from anybody at all because they're all ignoring him. Yeah. Like they don't even really realize he's there or is any kind of threat at all. And then he backs up a little bit, in my estimation, probably to get the cameraman more within his line of fire. So he backs up a little bit and then he raises his weapon again and starts shooting at the reporter. I think he fires off 3 rounds at her before his camera drops and she starts screaming. She runs off and then, it just kind of cuts out and you just hear, I think you hear 7 more shots.
They said he fired 17 shots total.
Yeah.
Which, unless he had an extended magazine in that gun, he had to reload.
No. It's
most 9mm only carry a capacity of 15.
I think it was a Glock.
Still most
Glock 22.
Most 9mm pistols, your max
magazine capacity is 15 rounds. A 45 max is between 8 and 10 rounds, depending on.
It didn't, from the sounds of it, it didn't sound like he had time to reload. Like it was just boom, 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 boom.
That's what I'm saying.
Pause, boom, boom, boom. I mean,
if he had a little bit of an extended magazine for extra.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Anyway, it shows all of this unfolding on the video that he posted out there. And he's claiming that he did this in retaliation for this reporter and the people at the station where she worked as being racist and homophobic because he was a black gay man.
Yeah. Didn't he also say God told him to do it?
Yes, he was a Jehovah's Witness who believed he had some severe or serious mental health issues.
That kind of, well, imagine that.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly anybody who would do something like this has
not in the right mental capacity.
Has some severe mental health issues.
Yeah, well, he's a Jehovah's Witness too, so I mean that also.
Yeah,
but that sort of shoots down, no pun intended, Bill O'Reilly's theory or statement.
Oh yeah, Bill O'Reilly talking about all of the shootings and mass murders are happening by secular people.
We're all atheists since 1960 or whatever.
Yeah. Spend 5 fucking seconds Googling that shit, Bill O'Reilly, and find out how full of shit you are.
No, he fucking knows. He's just a liar.
I'd like him to name one atheist that's done a shooting recently.
You probably could come up with one, but...
The guy who shot the Muslims
over
the parking spaces.
Lot. Yeah, the parking spots.
Yeah, but that wasn't like a premeditated...
But doesn't matter.
Yeah, and that's not that he said, no, God told me to do this.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that had nothing to do with his atheism. It had everything else to do with other reasons besides that.
Yeah, but anyway, does anyone know where Glenn Beck is actually from? I was just wondering. Because he's a Mormon.
He is a Mormon. I don't know where he's from, actually.
Which is really weird that he claims so many prophetic things, because he should know
that he's not supposed to do that.
That stuff's supposed to come from Monson.
Well, he's clearly just as Mormon as most of the people sitting in the pews who don't fucking know better.
But he speaks to all the Tea Party Republicans, and 90% of them don't know what a fucking Mormon is.
Yeah, so I gave you guys a whole bunch of background on this thing that I want to talk about, Glenn Beck being a giant fucking asshole about.
Yeah.
So this comes from Right Wing Watch. Back in 2013, Glenn Beck declared on his radio show that if it ever got to the point where he started reading scripture on the air, you could be sure that it was a sign that we are rapidly approaching the end times.
Yep.
Which perfectly fits in with his theological leanings anyway, because he's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Right.
They're a fucking death cult who believes that we are in the latter days anyway. Mm-hmm. Jesus Christ is going to return any day now.
Right. So forget Thomas Monson. This is our modern day Nostra dumbass.
Anyway, the story continues that was 2 years ago, and since we don't seem to have quite reached the end of days yet, Beck returned to reading from scripture on his program today in the wake of the shooting of a television reporter and cameraman live on air, warning once again that our time is up. The shooting prompted Beck to deliver a long sermon on the book of Jeremiah, revealing that God has told him that he is giving this nation one final warning.
Yeah.
Quote, I think God is giving me one final warning, Beck said. He is telling us, you got one more chance. This is it. I'm telling you this is it. This is God saying, last chance.
Oh, yeah, I remember talking about this because in Mormon theology, he's not allowed to get revelation for anybody but himself and his family.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he can. Well, yeah, we talked about this on the last episode that he can only offer these prophetic warnings for people that are directly related to him.
Well, him and his family, and then above that's his bishop, and then above that's stake president. But the only person that's allowed to receive direct revelation from God about what the world is supposed to do is, according to Mormons, is Thomas S. Monson.
Oh yeah,
but he apparently he just doesn't give a shit about that.
Yeah. So Glenn Beck talking about all this. Let's go ahead and
we're gonna play this.
Yeah, let's play the video. Let's hear of Mr. Glenn Beck.
Let it roll.
Remember what I've been saying recently? I think that God is giving me one final warning. He's telling us, you got one more chance. This is it. I'm telling you, this is it. This is what I was afraid. This is why I called that rabbi in Jerusalem and said, do I have this right? Because this is God saying, last chance. He says, look what I did to Shiloh. Look what I did. That was the first place I put my name on, and I destroyed that place.
Great job.
So you better go look and see what happened to any place. And may I suggest in modern times, we look at any place that God has destroyed or allowed themselves to destroy themselves because they got out of control. I told these guys 15 years ago, you ever start hear me reading right from the scriptures, you know we're at the end. I'm reading today right from the scriptures. And I apologize to anybody who doesn't want to hear it. I apologize to anybody who doesn't understand it. But I'm telling you, as we watch things like a shooting on television and a shooting in a street, this is the beginning of sorrows. This is the beginning. And we have a final call. Turn around and go the other way. We've passed all the exits. Stop the damn car. And if everybody else wants to continue out, you get out of that car and you walk the other way. Please hear me.
This guy's fucking out of his mind. He's fucking out of his gourd.
He's totally fucking crazy. And so Glenn Beck is quoting directly from the Mormons' favorite version of the Bible, which is the King James Version.
Yay! The worst translation there is.
So the quote that he's talking about comes from Matthew 24, verse 8. Where it says that all these are the beginning of sorrows. And it's basically Jesus talking to his followers. And this is the same chapter of Matthew, by the way, where Jesus tells all of his followers that he will return within their generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it didn't happen.
Glenn Beck doesn't fucking bother to mention any of that. And it kills me. It pains me like I want to fucking tear my beard out of my face. I think I don't know if I mentioned that just on last week or before, but that Glenn Beck views this one incident as this black guy killing this reporter and cameraman and wounding the person that they're interviewing as this particular incident is the beginning of sorrows. Fuck everything else that has happened in human history. Fuck all of the natural disasters. Fuck killing 250,000 people in a tidal wave. This right here, the murder, the shooting of 2 people on live television, this is the beginning of sorrows. Yeah. This from the guy who goes Godwin on every fucking episode of everything he's ever on. This is the beginning of sorrows. Fuck Glenn Beck.
Yeah. Super fuck Glenn Beck.
It made me so fucking mad when I saw this that I warned these guys 15 years ago, if you ever see me quoting directly from scripture, this is gonna be it. That's the beginning of sorrows.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about, Glenn Beck?
Well, and here's the thing. He's no different from Harold Camping because he makes these proclamations all the fucking time. You know, just like that. And the thing is that when he's wrong about it, like he's gonna be wrong about this one,
it just disappears. It's forgotten. It's ignored.
Nobody's going to go back and say, hey, wait.
Remember
what
that
about
one
when you
time?
said this was the beginning of sorrows? And now all of a sudden,
remember in August
of
2015 when you said this was the beginning of sorrows?
Right. Now it's 2031 and you're still saying that, you know, and this is the way it's been ever since the first doomsday prophet. Jesus.
I was just so fucking mad when I saw this. Like, fuck you, Glenn Beck. You have an adopted religion after you were a fucking drug addict doing whatever the fuck else you're doing, going Godwin on every fucking thing you say. You talk about Nazism and fucking, you know, the world wars and killing 6 million Jews. But for some reason, the death of 6 million Jews isn't the fucking beginning of sorrows. No. It's the murder of a fucking news reporter on live television with her cameraman that is the beginning of sorrow.
Well, she was a Christian.
Oh my God. I want to fucking strangle this
and the
stupid
shooter was
shit.
black and gay.
Sorry, I started laughing in the middle of that. You were laughing at my rants all the time, but it's for some reason in the middle of it caught me funny because I'm like, Dan is so mad he's wiggling. And then I couldn't stop laughing at that because your legs were just going.
Fuck Glenn Beck.
I know, dude.
God damn it. This is the beginning of sorrows.
Yeah.
Out of everything else, it's this one fucking thing. This is the beginning of sorrows.
But I mean, the Jews had it coming.
Oh, fuck Glenn Beck.
Sneaking all that gold and hiding it somewhere.
Fuck Glenn Beck and the LDS Church for its fucking apocalyptic teachings and death cult.
Yeah.
everybody in that church thinks that Jesus Christ is going to come back any fucking day now. And they treat the world like that's what's going to happen. Nothing fucking matters. Yeah. It doesn't matter if we're destroying the fucking planet and killing people because Jesus is going to come back and set everything right any fucking day now.
I got a great anecdote for you.
God damn it.
The other day at work, I saw a truck in the parking lot I have not seen before, which was
it Donald Truck?
It was Donald Truck in the parking lot. And
it's pretty elusive.
The roof of the truck was so blurry you couldn't even tell it was there. And so I'm just kidding. It wasn't a real Donald truck.
You're talking about Donald's hair.
Yeah. But it was an F-350 extended cab, long bed, super jacked up, big tires, sticking halfway out in the fucking parking lot.
Clearly compensating for something.
Right. And a sticker on the back window that said global warmer. I was like, you are such a fucking asshole.
People that like to go roll coal.
Yeah. And it's some person that just drives themselves to work. Like, there's nobody else in that truck. Like, get a fucking Kia, or something. Like, what?
They don't haul anything.
That?
They don't.
No, that drives me. Oh, and there's a guy that lives like right around the block from me.
They don't do any off-roading.
I think I told you this, but he flies like one of those size of this room Confederate flags in the back of his jacked up 86 Chevy or whatever. Yeah, he's such a but I mean that shit happens.
It just screams asshole.
Yeah, well that's when I was taking Brandon to football practice, we have to drive by that, and the first time he saw that, he looked over and he's like, "That guy's an asshole." And I'm
Good
like,
for you, Brandon.
I'm like, yeah, it's okay to swear, buddy.
I probably can't talk too much,
but he never does.
I don't have a Confederate flag, but I still do drive the Hummer.
You're not driving a fucking F-350 that's jacked up that you never take off road flying a Confederate flag.
But I do know,
and have a fucking sticker in the window that says global warmer.
Some of those newer diesels get better gas mileage than that fucking Hummer does.
Yeah. I don't care though, but the whole point is that their attitude
is I'm going to fuck up the environment because I don't care.
The doomsday stuff, like what we were talking about, that because Jesus, they don't give a shit, But I mean,
God would never allow us to fucking destroy our planet. Yeah, we'd fix that shit.
Think about it, Dan. Think about it. We can't destroy something we can't create. Checkmate, fuckers.
I don't think I've properly conveyed why this whole Glenn Beck story bothers me as much as it does, because
I know, you're still seething.
I am. We're more than a week on since I first fucking read this, and it still makes me so fucking mad that to Glenn Beck, this one fucking thing is the beginning of sorrows.
Yeah.
It's not the middle. It's not a portion of it. It's the fucking beginning of sorrows. Yeah. Fuck you, Glenn Beck.
Yeah. What triggered that for him about this one?
Publicity.
That it was shot live and everybody's heard about it, so he's going to jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah. Fear mongering.
Well, I mean,
that it was a black man. That it was a gay black man shooting a white woman.
There you go.
It was a gay black man shooting a white woman. It doesn't fucking matter to Glenn Beck that this motherfucker is religious as all get out.
Oh, yeah.
It's that he's a gay black man shooting a white woman on live television.
Look up Glenn Beck. I want to see where he's from and what his fucking shit is about.
I don't want to look up Glenn Beck.
Well,
fuck that
just
guy.
Wikipedia him or something. But
yeah. we are at that time of the night again, though, too.
God damn it. No, we're not.
No, we're not.
It goes slightly quicker when we have a guest.
It does.
Yeah, that seems like a week ago we had Darrel Ray on the show.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was really awesome. I was looking
really
forward to that.
I was too.
And he was everything I expected.
I really like Darrel a whole lot.
He's from Washington. Okay.
DC or state?
No, Washington State, Everett.
Yeah.
Oh, he lives in Texas. Of course he fucking lives in Texas.
Yeah. I'm still curious to know how he became involved with the LDS Church. I'm sure
it's Washington, dude.
I was going to say I'm sure that it's because he married an LDS woman. I mean that seems to be the LDS Church's preferred modus operandi for picking up men of whatever age who aren't LDS is having a female LDS person convert them to the religion that's
how my dad got involved.
Yeah.
He was raised secular. And I was funny because I was asking him about his father, who I didn't know very well. He died in 1989. but like I knew he was a cool guy and he was always kind and nice. He's just known for being like a nice, kind, gentle guy. But I asked my dad about it, you know, were you raised with a religion? And he said, no, none of that. I mean, he said my dad just had a bunch of philosophy books that he'd read and stuff, but that's all bull crap. It's just some guy's opinion about what he thinks the world is like. And I'm like, that is not at all what philosophy is, Dad, but okay. So that's the house my dad was raised in. And then my mom was raised really strict LDS, they converted. And then that's how my dad got into it. He'd never even really been involved with church at all. But then it's like, oh, I was going to say something that I just can't say because it's my parents, but
I really like to bone this lady.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say even more vulgar, but,
were you going to say fuck?
I was going to say, pussy. and then it was all church from then on. But it still doesn't explain why he stays that way. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but
I don't know. Some of the things you've said about your dad, I'm like, just.
I know. He tricks me a lot because like sometimes we'll be talking about stuff and then I'm like, oh, he's totally a secular liberal. And then other times he's like, I don't know, I kind of like that Scott Walker guy. And I'm like, fuck, Dad.
But well, and I say that about your dad, but my dad fucking started going to church in October.
Yeah, your dad, and he has the God plate and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. It's the same kind of thing.
And he's a racist.
Yeah, my dad is a fucking racist too. I told you that one thing. Remember, I was trying to sway my dad on the same-sex marriage thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, here's the easy. In my head, I'm like, well, here's the easiest way to do it. You just relate it to race. And I'm like, okay, well, so imagine that these are a black woman and a white man. And he's like, well, I'm opposed to that too. well, fuck.
Fuck. There goes my good argument.
So now we got a whole hour of talking. Let's get started. But he did come around. But yeah,
that would be. I'm sure I would have the same conversation with my dad because he thinks the same fucking way.
Yeah, it took some work, but we did get her done.
Yeah. So next week
we will have Mark Lawrence and Sarah Kramer from Restore Our Humanity talking to us about the upcoming World Congress of Families convention here in Utah.
Those fucking bastards.
World Congress of Families, which is closely
the World Congress of Families
tied
are bastards.
Yeah.
Mark and Sarah are awesome.
Yes, Mark and Sarah are fucking awesome. World Congress of Families, who is very closely tied to the LDS Church, preaching their gospel of hate against the members of the LGBTQ community.
Mm-hmm. And I may or may not be here, all depending on how things go, but I might be gone for the next 3 weeks.
Can you talk about the band that you will be working with? No, not yet?
No.
Oh, because I
you still want to say something. No, but, so I might be gone the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, 'cause I gotta go to California too.
Hopefully our oxygen reserves won't run out before then.
Yes,
Dan. Me with the vague reference.
Why am I lost?
Because you're lost.
Because you didn't. Yeah, I'll explain it when we're off the air. I think Ryan got it.
I got it.
Anyway, thank you very, very much for tuning in, everybody. If you like the show, share it with your friends, post it on Facebook, whatever other social media outlet you have. You can find us on Twitter at TGR Podcast. You can send us email at godlessrebelution@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook at Godless Rebelution. You can also call and leave us messages or send us text messages at 330-81-REBEL.
330-81-REBEL.
And don't forget to go over and check out Recovering from Religion.
Recovering from Religion, Secular Therapy. He's got a hotline project, The God Virus, Sex and God. Those are the books Darrel Ray has out. They're awesome.
Yes.
If anyone needs help, you can either get in touch with Darrel Ray himself, find him on Facebook, get in touch with us via our Gmail account, and so that it's private at GodlessRebelution@gmail.com. We will put you in touch with Darrel Ray for a secular therapist, or if you're recovering from a religion, we'd be more than happy to do that. Fantastic guy, as you heard tonight. Go buy his books. They're fucking great.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there will be links in our description on this episode to find links to these things.
I will be sure to post links to his talk on...
We'll Zelda that shit.
Yeah, I will be sure to post links to his talk at Free OK, where he talked about there's no such thing as porn or sex addiction.
Oh, yeah.
I'll also post links to Recovering from Religion and the Secular Therapy Project, and mention the book titles that Dr. Darrel Ray has written. Once again, thank you very much for coming on the show, Darrel. We really, really appreciate it.
Loved it.
Everybody else, if you're tuning in, please be sure to also
like and rate on Stitcher
like and rate us on
please do that
on Stitcher and iTunes. I've noticed that we have, I think, 7 reviews on iTunes now.
Okay.
All of them very, very good.
Let's get to 70.
If you, yeah, absolutely. Please be sure to recommend us, rate, review, share us with your friends. And if you have any show suggestions, comments, questions, let us know. We'd be happy to address them for you.
Till next time.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.